Chapter 608. You're too fast. Azureblade hadn't even recovered from his shock at the revival point. Although it was planned, the speed of Gu Fei's slash was beyond his imagination. Especially under those circumstances, it was still able to hit him. Azureblade wasn't that kind. He wanted to use the Windchaser emblem to teleport the moment Gu Fei attacked. He might be able to fool Gu Fei. After all, it was impossible to not feel the pain of losing 40 levels. No matter how indifferent it was still the result of his hard work. In the end, Gu Fei's attack was too fast, especially when he could teleport. By the time he appeared, Azureblade was already there. Azureblade didn't even have time to react before he died. Die a worthy death, Gu Fei comforted. Can I come back? Azureblade sighed and asked. Come back. She didn't make things difficult for my other brothers, right? Azureblade asked. She doesn't know them at all. Gu Fei said. Oh. Azureblade relaxed. He left the revival point and walked towards 9,527 stones in the wilderness. Although Slender Waist Dance said that she had let it go, she still wasn't satisfied. However, losing to Azureblade twice in a row wasn't completely a problem of luck. Azureblade's equipment wasn't at the level of a normal player. In addition, he was a robber, so his PvP experience and skills were very good. Although Slender Waist Dance's PvP skills weren't bad, the problem was that as a pay-to-win warrior, her equipment always suppressed other players. Normally, she was used to chopping vegetables. Now that she wanted to chop an expert like Azureblade, the outcome was naturally tragic. At this moment, Slender Waist Dance's face was filled with melancholy. She had no intention of leaving after squatting at 9,527 stones. Do you want to play with us? Gu Fei understood that this girl was still depressed, so he came over to invite her to relax. Play to earn money? Slender Waist Dance asked. She wasn't interested in earning money. Gu Fei laughed dryly. I have nothing to do anyway. What are you guys doing? Slender Waist Dance perked up. Although she couldn't be bothered to participate, she wanted to see what these guys were up to. The most efficient way to level up. Gu Fei waved his hand and pointed at the large group of players in front of Rock 9527, who were focused on learning how Brother Yu fought monsters on the giant rock. How is it efficient? Slim Waist Dance also looked at Brother Yu, who was on top of the boulder. Ugh, for a normal person, your equipment is too much, Gu Fei said. The most efficient way to level up was to increase the efficiency of a player killing a single monster through combat techniques. However, for a player like Thin Waist Dancer, whose equipment was already too overpowered, she could kill a monster in 1 or 2 hits. How could she possibly be more efficient? Therefore, this efficient leveling method was not efficient at all for her. How boring. Thin Waist Dance watched for a while before losing interest. For you, a level 40 monster is too low. What level do you usually kill? Gu Fei asked. Level 50. Slender Waist Dance said. Have you ever killed a level 61? Gu Fei asked. I have, but it's not as fast as killing 50. Slender Waist Dance said. Hee hee. Gu Fei laughed. Slender Waist Dance's eyes suddenly lit up. You have a way to increase the efficiency of killing level 60 monsters, right? Of course. Gu Fei said. Teach me. Slender Waist Dance jumped up. We're still busy right now. I'll teach you when I have time, Gu Fei replied. Call me when you have time. Slender Waist Dance's gloominess was swept away. The ones who were gloomy were the experts who had heard the conversation between Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance. Don't go too far with using level 60 monsters to level up. Everyone protested. If you want to learn, you can come. Gu Fei smiled. Was there anyone who didn't want to learn? Everyone enthusiastically signed up. In the end, Gu Fei added, first, change your stats to full agility. Our current agility is probably equivalent to your full agility, right? Sword Demon and Yutian Shinming asked. Unscathed in battle had tears streaming down his face. He knew that he definitely didn't have a chance. But... Yutian, I don't know how to use bow and arrow. If you change your weapon, your damage won't be able to keep up and it won't be very efficient. Gu Fei said. Although archers could also use weapons like swords and daggers, because of the weapon's coefficient requirement and the fact that archers had proficiency skill, bow proficiency, even if they were equipped with these weapons, their normal damage wouldn't be on the same level as warriors and thieves. In Gu Fei's current teaching activities, apart from the clerics who had extremely limited damage, the most tragic were the archers. After changing to normal weapons, their damage was much lower than the other classes, so their efficiency was naturally very pitiful. Yutian Shinming cried bitterly. When the last group of people came down, only Sword Demon could meet the requirements. Glue and the others weren't very interested in this matter. Yutian Shinming went over to ask. These guys weren't thinking about leveling at all. They just wanted to see how big the profits from this deal were. Call me when you're free. Slender Waist Dance had already recovered. After repeatedly reminding Gu Fei, he didn't want to waste any more time. Thus, everyone quietly waited for Southern Azure Sword to arrive before they officially started negotiating about the deal. The cooperation was a foregone conclusion. Next was the problem of how to distribute the profits. The 6 members of the child elite group were easy to negotiate among themselves. One of the main reasons was that they didn't really care about money. Although it was inevitable that they would be mean to each other, they were just joking around for fun and didn't really care about it. Usually, you would take 800 yuan, I would take 300 yuan, and everyone would laugh and scold each other. In fact, they wouldn't take it to heart. However, they naturally couldn't do that with Southern Azure Sword and the others. People played games for money, and they naturally couldn't be so careless in this aspect that was the most important. Therefore, after Southern Azure Sword arrived, he didn't mention anything about Slender Waist Dance at all, and went straight to the topic of cooperation. Thus, right in front of 9,527 stones, Brother Yu continued to teach, while 100 Era Jingren was in charge of collecting fees from the new players. Behind the 9,527 stones, a group of fellows gathered together and secretly discussed how to distribute the money. Han family young master first reported the income of Brother Yu and 100 Era Jingren from last night's 2 matches, as well as some income from today's messy activities. The amount of gold coins that exceeded 6 digits made Southern Azure Sword and the others extremely excited. Both sides had a very pleasant discussion. Southern Azure Sword and the others weren't greedy, and Gu Fei and the others weren't stingy either. Therefore, one side didn't mind taking less, and the other side didn't mind giving more. How could this kind of cooperation not be easy? However, after all, it was everyone's first time doing this kind of business. There were many details that couldn't be thought of at the moment. In the end, they decided to explore as they go, and seek development while exploring. For the first time, Southern Azure Sword and the others would be under Gu Fei's banner, and they would be the main force of the teaching team. The other matters would be temporarily handled by others, and if there were any major problems, they would discuss and solve it together. After the discussion, the teaching of 9,527 stones would be handed over to Brother Yu for the time being. Gu Fei and 100 Era Jingren led Southern Azure Sword and the others to the White Mill for the next stop of preparation. Since the 7 of them were going to be in charge of teaching, they naturally followed Gu Fei and 100 Era Jingren to learn what they needed to learn. In order not to make the mistake of inadvertently attracting the attention of the onlookers in the wilderness camp, they purposely found a corner with no one around, and Qianli practically kidnapped the mobs to learn from them. After the teaching, Gu Fei and 100 Era Jingren had nothing to do, but Southern Azure Sword and the others still had to study hard. However, these guys' levels weren't mainstream, and they were still top-tier experts. They were much more receptive than ordinary players. Moreover, this time, they had a full range of classes, and the teaching was more comprehensive. For example, Gu Fei taught Flaming Jacket the melee fighting style of a mage step by step. After all, a mage couldn't use a sword to attack a level 40 monster, and that would be ineffective. Dual Flame Flash and Enchantment were the main damage output of a mage in a melee fight. Flaming Jacket was a little nervous while learning from Gu Fei. Every time Gu Fei attacked, Flaming Jacket would want to shrink back. He couldn't get used to the fact that Gu Fei's sword wasn't aimed at him even though he was right next to Gu Fei. Other than that, Glue, Inagami and Forest Dense, their leveling efficiency was quite low. However, they were only in charge of teaching, and the key was to demonstrate the fighting style to the players who were learning. Their own efficiency varied from person to person. In theory, the better the equipment, the more efficient the leveling efficiency. However, once the equipment reached a certain level, the leveling efficiency would become useless. Therefore, in essence, leveling efficiency was actually the best friend of the average middle-class player. After Gu Fei and 100-era Jingren finished their tutoring, they went offline on time, leaving the busywork to the players who only focused on the game. At this time, the situation in the wilderness camp was rapidly worsening, just as everyone expected. More and more players arrived, and the leveling area was finally filled to the brim. Batch after batch of graduates set foot in the leveling area, but they couldn't find any monsters to kill. They had spent their money, but there were no monsters to kill. The beautiful dream of quickly accumulating EXP and leveling up was right in front of them, but they couldn't be realized. Countless players were depressed. Under such circumstances, it wouldn't be a game if kill stealing didn't happen. The chaotic situation continued to escalate, and the flames of war continued to spread. The players with brains had already left this troublesome place as soon as possible. Kill stealing? What was the point of kill stealing in such a situation? You could steal a monster in 1 minute, but the next minute, you would be stolen like a monster. There was no place for a single player in such a chaotic place. The major guilds of White Stone City finally made their appearance. It wasn't that the major guilds of White Stone City were slow to react. Firstly, the promotion of the leveling efficiency method was sudden. Secondly, the wilderness camp was a famous leveling area for solo players. The major guilds usually organized group leveling, so they had nothing to do with such a place. Perhaps there were also players who were passionate about solo leveling, but these people were naturally reclusive and unsociable. Or perhaps they wanted to train hard and amaze the world with a single brilliant feat when they discovered such a good thing. Not a single person reported it to the guild. As a result, during this period of time, many small teams gathered in the wilderness camp. However, these major guilds of White Stone City were slow to notice. The 3 largest guilds of White Stone City clearly came prepared. After entering the wilderness camp, there wasn't the slightest dispute. They very simply and directly divided the leveling area into 3 equal portions. At this time, the players who were muddle-headed and fighting for kills in the leveling area saw that the major guilds had intervened. They naturally understood that they had no chance of singing by themselves. But who was willing to give up so easily? There were those who wanted to try their luck and continue mingling in there. There were also those who immediately turned around and called for help. The 3 major guilds also reacted very quickly. They immediately adjusted their strategy and quickly spat out half of the leveling area that they had already divided. They were also very worried. After all, this wasn't just a piece of equipment, but a leveling area with double and triple times the normal leveling area. This was something that everyone needed. The 3 major guilds taking over the entire area was equivalent to going against all the players of White Stone City. Although the 3 major guilds were powerful, they didn't dare to cover the sky with one hand. This strategy was extremely effective. When the players who came saw that half of the wilderness camp was occupied by the 3 major guilds and the other half was a wild field for cats and dogs, the smart ones knew which side to contend with. As a result, a strange scene once again appeared in the wilderness camp. Half of the leveling area was divided into 3 portions, all of which were leveling in harmony and order. The other half was divided into countless portions and was constantly being redivided. PvP occurred everywhere. White light formed a river. Flames, whirlwinds, sap, all of these filled every inch of this half. All of this happened in this short night. The fellows of the child elite group had long since tactfully left the wilderness camp. After the guild entered the wilderness camp, the teaching business basically didn't have the space to exist. As long as there was one person within the guild who knew how, even if they wanted to do business, they could still do it internally. There was no need to invite outsiders. As for the other players who came, they also gathered together to fight over the leveling area. Even if there were some who didn't know how to level, they naturally had friends to teach them. The pure and innocent era of coming alone to learn the efficient leveling method was gone in a mere 2 days. This situation actually gave an early warning to the Han family young master and the others. The guild was really a big enemy for them to develop this business. There were over 1,000 people in a level 6 guild. As long as they sent a representative to learn, the entire guild could spread the news. Then, with a poke at the leveling area, the majority of the area would be occupied by them. You must register in advance. After considering this point, the Han family young master said even more resolutely. Starting from tomorrow, we will announce that we will accept the efficient leveling method registration for the White Mill leveling area. Which one of you inspected that area today? Me. Yutian Shinming raised his hand. That place is a bit smaller than the wilderness camp, but I think it shouldn't be a problem for it to accommodate 5,000 players. Yutian, you've overlooked a problem. The saturation of 5,000 players is for the current normal leveling. But when the players all master the efficient leveling method, the current situation looks like the average efficiency will double. In other words, the time it takes to kill one monster can now be used to kill 2 monsters. In other words, if a player needs to continuously kill monsters to level and needs 3 monsters to respawn, then after mastering the efficient leveling method, they will need 6 monsters. In this case, when the leveling area is saturated, the number of players needs to be calculated downwards. The White Mill should be calculated at 3,000. Brother Yu said. Yu Tianxinming's expression was pained. Brother Yu, next time you can just say that I calculated wrongly. It should be 3,000. You don't need to tell me the reason. What's the situation at the wilderness camp? Han family young master asked Brother Yu. White Stone City's largest guilds, Winter, White Wind, and Tempest, occupy half of the area. These 3 guilds are all level 6 guilds and have a total of 3,150 players. But it's impossible for all of them to be online. I've roughly calculated that there should be around 2,500 players. Brother Yu said, 2,500 players? I'm afraid that occupying half of the leveling area isn't enough. Han family young master asked. Of course it's not enough to train, but the big guilds usually organize group training. Right now, they've just received the news that they're stationed in the wilderness camp. They're still in the early stages and the leveling method hasn't been popularized, so they haven't started leveling yet. Brother Yu explained and continued, as for the other half, it's lively. Right now, it's still in the chaotic killing situation of the evening. There are only a few who can safely guard a leveling area, and it's even more impossible for a single person to survive. But looking at the current situation, it's very likely that there will be second-rate guilds joining forces to further divide up the leveling area. Sure enough, at the end of the day, it's still the team that has the advantage. Han family young master nodded. Maybe we can take the initiative to contact the guild and directly sell them our leveling method. Brother Yu said. It's not time yet. Han family young master waved his hand. Right now, even if you sell it to them, they won't realize the benefits. They'll only think that they only need to spend 99 gold to buy it and share it. There's no need to fork out such a large amount of money. So, we'll still use our original plan, but this time, we must move quickly. I think this time, everyone should sacrifice a bit of time. Everyone will be in charge of teaching. Jian Nan Yu and the other 6 plus us, 13 people. In the shortest amount of time, we'll train a whole leveling area in one go. Yes. Everyone nodded. Also, announce the establishment of the studio in the White Mill recruitment post. Let everyone know that this job will be hosted by our studio. Han family young master said. We haven't discussed the name of the studio yet. Brother, you said. Let's call it Qianli's Drunk Studio. We'll use Qianli's name. Do you guys have any objections? Han family young master asked. We don't. Everyone shook their heads. The question is whether he has it or not. Have you asked him? I've asked. Han family young master said. You really asked? Brother Yu's face was full of doubt. Posting the post was his job. If this got out, then Gu Fei would come looking for trouble. It doesn't matter if I asked or not. He won't go on the forums anyways. Han family young master said. Fuck. Brother Yu was depressed. This guy really didn't ask. To be cautious, Brother Yu decided to confirm with Gu Fei before posting. Also, let the registered players send the money directly to Qianli's mailbox. Do you guys have any questions? Han family young master said. Money was always a sensitive issue. But everyone had seen Gu Fei's character. They trusted him enough. Han family young master's suggestion was also because of this. Everyone nodded. Brother Yu asked again, I say, you haven't discussed this with Qianli, right? What's there to discuss? How big is it to receive money? If he isn't willing, then let me do it. Han family young master said. Fuck, it's Qianli then. Brother Yu didn't dare to question anymore. If Han family young master was responsible for this, Brother Yu really doubted that he would get wine instead of gold coins. Chapter 609. The Han family young master was prepared to use Gu Fei's name for a bunch of things, but Brother Yu didn't dare to be so rash. He was prepared to wait for Gu Fei to come online and confirm before doing anything. Fortunately, the sky was gradually brightening. Another all-nighter was over. Sword Demon and the others were all busy preparing to go offline. Brother Yu knew that Gu Fei now had the habit of going online every morning to take a stroll. He decided to go offline later and wait for Gu Fei to come online and ask everything before doing anything. Thinking about it carefully, Brother Yu felt that he was really like an errand boy. He was the one who had to worry about these trivial matters. People like Sword Demon and Yutian Shenming were like bosses. They had to level up, do quests, and rest. What was even more tragic was that he was happy doing errand boys. Brother Yu was very depressed. Was he born with a cheap life? When Gu Fei had nothing to do, Brother Yu strolled around and couldn't help but sneak back to the wilderness camp. This place had been filled with smoke for an entire night. It was still not quiet in the morning. The competition in the leveling area was still ongoing. After just one night, who knew how many waves of people there were already here? However, the situation was already better than when the chaos first broke out. A few strong small teams had already established a foothold and were independent in their own areas. Unless it was a new player who didn't understand the situation, no one would fight with these teams for territory. Brother Yu walked a few steps here and didn't dare to go any further because he found that there were already many vigilant and hostile gazes looking at him. Brother Yu tactfully indicated to everyone that he was just passing by and took a detour. The other half of the wilderness camp was occupied by the 3 big guilds, so it was a lot more orderly. After one night of learning, the people from the 3 big guilds had already grasped the efficient leveling method. Although there was definitely not enough space for nearly 3,000 people to use the efficient leveling method at the same time, it wasn't a big problem for the guilds. The guilds could unify the allocation. People couldn't just level 24 hours a day, right? According to the 8-hour work schedule, everyone should be divided into 3 batches and take turns to practice. No one would be dissatisfied with 8 hours. This was already a crazy amount of time. Everyone had other lives in the game, and leveling wasn't everything. Brother Yu was hoping that both parties would log off and take a break, so that he could take advantage of the opportunity to earn some extra money. But after seeing the situation, he decided not to. It was obvious that the players who had successfully occupied the leveling area were unwilling to give it up, especially Zhang Luan's half, who had only managed to gain a foothold after a night of killing. Brother Yu suspected that they were prepared to train until they ran out of stamina. After walking around like this, Brother Yu finally returned to the main city. He didn't sleep much yesterday, so he was very sleepy now. Especially now that he had nothing to do, the boring wait made him even more tired. Brother Yu had already decided to ask Gu Fei for a realistic contact number. At least he wouldn't have to suffer anymore. He was helpless. There was a system notification on his friends list. Brother Yu saw that it was Gu Fei online. He hurriedly sent a message as if he was afraid that Gu Fei would run away. Morning. I haven't rested yet. Gu Fei replied. I'm waiting for you. Brother Yu said. What is it? Gu Fei asked. Give me your number. Brother Yu thought about it from a long-term perspective and made this a priority. What for? Gu Fei was curious. You're always online. Look, if I want to find you, I have to wait like this. It's too tiring. It's more convenient to give me your number. Brother Yu said. Oh. Gu Fei smiled and gave Brother Yu his number. Brother Yu felt like he had finished a big thing. After writing down the number, he said, the studio is ready to announce the establishment of the studio. We plan to call it Qianli's Drunk Studio and use your name. Is there a problem? This. Then when there's any business, won't everyone contact me? I can't do it. Gu Fei said. That's not a problem. We can just talk about the contact person. Brother Yu said. Oh, whatever. Gu Fei said. Also, everyone is prepared to let you be in charge of the collection. Brother Yu said. Why? Gu Fei asked. If you do it, everyone will be more at ease. After all, you're the one who brought them up. Brother Yu said. Oh. Gu Fei still didn't say anything. If you don't have any objections, then we'll do it. Brother Yu said. I don't have any objections. Okay, then I'll go now. Brother Yu said goodbye to Gu Fei and then went offline. He couldn't wait to start writing again. Once he started working, his tiredness disappeared and his body was full of energy. He had already thought about the content of the post. In just a few strokes, he had already finished writing it. Brother Yu was naturally familiar with the forum. This time, the scope of the post was even wider. It wasn't limited to the Parallel Worlds official forums. Brother Yu reposted it from a few famous online game forums. Without exception, he used his own account, Brother Yu. This status in the forums was equivalent to Sword Demon's status in the game. Ha, this is definitely a big piece of news. I'm really looking forward to the players' reactions when they see it. After Brother Yu finished busying himself, he admired the results of his battle. He noticed that some of the posts were already being replied to. Some were screaming, some were asking for insider information, and some were asking to sign up. Brother Yu was very proud of himself and finally went to sleep. Just as Brother Yu expected, this was indeed a big piece of news. While he was sleeping, the post he posted was being reposted at an astonishing speed. Brother Yu only posted it on the Parallel Worlds official forums and a few famous online game forums. Apart from that, there were also some second-tier websites, forums, private spaces, groups, and so on. They were all spreading the news quickly. Some gaming websites even quoted the post and reported it as news. Many online reporters were already flocking to interview the people involved. For the entire online gaming circle, the efficiency leveling method was not that eye-catching. However, names like Sword Demon, Yutian Shinming, Unscathed in Battle, and Brother Yu were all celebrities in the online gaming circle. They announced that they had established a studio together. This was the main reason why so many people were paying attention to it. In the entertainment circle, it was like the four heavenly kings announcing that they had established a group and were going to hold a concert together. As for the name Qianli Drunk, although it was terrifying in the parallel world, he was still a rising star in the online gaming circle. In terms of popularity, he was slightly less famous than South Ranger. Although South Ranger was not a famous expert, he had a very good reputation among the professional players. He was famous for being honest and reliable. Brother Yu deliberately used his name to add to the credibility of the studio. After the big IDs attracted enough attention, people began to carefully ponder what this efficiency leveling method was. How could it attract these arrogant experts to show their faces and step into the ranks of the money-grubbing ranks? The efficiency leveling method had only been made public for 2 days. Even in the parallel world, only a small portion of people knew about it. Now that it was on the forums, it caused a lot of discussion, and the wilderness camp was quickly sold out. In the game, a large number of people began to pour into Whitestone City. This time, it was much more intense than before. Before, it was just some rumors and gossip spreading. How could it compare to this earth-shattering promotion in the online gaming world? 2 hours after Brother Yu's post, the players in the wilderness camp clearly felt the pressure increase. This was because players kept surging in, and a considerable number of people did not fight for the kill. They only watched from the side. This was completely different from what they had experienced the entire night. For a moment, they were at a loss. For hours after Brother Yu posted, the number of players in the wilderness camp continued to increase. This time, even the people from the 3 major guilds felt the pressure. This time, a large number of players also appeared around them. They did not put the 3 major guilds in their eyes at all. These newcomers did not steal kills either. They only watched from the sidelines. This made the players from the 3 major guilds feel at a loss. They had received orders early on that this half of the field was to be guarded by the 3 guilds. Anyone who stole kills would be killed without mercy. But now, there was a large group of people, but they did not steal kills. What was going on? To kill or not to kill? What was even more frightening was yet to come. With the 3 great guilds working together, they were already second to none in Whitestone City. There was absolutely no team that could surpass them in terms of strength. However, the crowd of spectators easily outnumbered them. Moreover, it was unknown whether these people knew each other or not. In short, the players from the 3 great guilds, who were grinding monsters and leveling, were like monkeys watching them, admiring and pointing at them. The players from the 3 major guilds were bewildered. Unfortunately, the 3 guild leaders were not online. For a moment, no one understood what was going on. Later, someone ran over and asked around. Gradually, they heard some clues. At this time, in the wilderness camp, there was actually a large number of players who were not from Whitestone City. It was no wonder that they regarded the 3 major guilds as nothing. How would outsiders know what the 3 major guilds were? And these players, after careful examination and observation, discovered that the efficiency leveling method was not an undeserved reputation. It was really as the advertisement said. After mastering it, leveling efficiency would at least double. At this time, an unknown player reminded everyone. One after another, everyone remembered that the next teaching location was not the wilderness camp, but the White Mill. As a result, a large number of people began to surge in the direction of the White Mill. At the White Mill, there was no crowd like the wilderness camp. At this time, there were some players who did not know what efficiency leveling method were properly leveling. Suddenly, a dark mass appeared on the horizon in the distance. A large group of players quickly surrounded them. No one had ever seen such an overwhelming scene in all their years of playing the game. One by one, the players who were leveling up were scared out of their wits. After these players stepped into the White Mills area, they began to wander around. However, Gu Fei and the others had done a good job of keeping it a secret. Yesterday, Jian Nan and the others had been practicing and learning. They hadn't revealed anything to outsiders. At this moment, there wasn't a single trace of an efficient leveling method in the White Mill. These players could only come in high spirits and return in disappointment. The first group of people left in disappointment, but the second group of people were still coming in high spirits. A steady stream of people from Whitestone City passed through the wilderness camp and finally arrived here, forming a tourist channel. And those players who did not gain anything from the White Mill returned to the wilderness camp. This time, it was not as simple as just watching. Many people had already begun to learn. Moreover, these sudden newcomers clearly did not understand the rules. Without asking anything, they imitated a player who was fighting monsters. This made these players, who had spent money to learn, feel indignant in their hearts. Because of this, disputes arose. There were also those who had learned a bit of nondescript knowledge and began to find monsters to practice with. They did not know how much fighting had happened in the wilderness camp. They treated it as an ordinary leveling area and went up to kill any monster they saw. In the end, they could only get themselves killed. Even so, the strength of the onlookers was too great. Especially those who came from outside the city, they did not understand the situation. Even the three major guilds were nothing in front of them. They only cared about hunting monsters. How could the three major guilds compromise so easily? Naturally, they would punish the people who rashly stole monsters. But the problem was that at this moment, there were already so many people stealing monsters. The three major guilds' 1,000 people were actually unable to take care of everyone. They looked to the east, and then the west was stolen. These players did not know each other at all. They also ignored the people around them. There were people being killed, but here they were still looking for monsters. The three major guilds rushed here and there, tired like dogs. They only cared about killing people and did not care about killing monsters. In the end, half of the leveling area that they occupied was forcibly eaten up. The people of the three major guilds were completely at a loss as they were surrounded. They were already busy to this extent, but the surrounding players did not have the slightest bit of hostility towards them. Only now did they realize that these people did not even know that the three major guilds had already taken over this area. Those who stole monsters without permission would die. They wanted to quickly announce this matter, but looking at this vast sea of people, they finally became timid. At this moment, half of their leveling area was already filled with at least 10,000 players. Let alone the fact that they didn't even have 1,000 players. Even if the three great guilds were here, they would still have to think twice before dealing with this situation. At this moment, the number of people in the leveling area continued to increase. The first to arrive were all White Stone City locals. Then, the people from the nearest main city arrived. Then, the people from the further main city arrived. Then, the people from the further main city arrived. Gu Fei, who was supervising the leveling of the students in the level 35 leveling area, saw the endless stream of people rushing towards one direction. His heart was filled with astonishment. From what he remembered, the only time this many players had gathered in one place was during the entrance to the competition. Gu Fei was looking over here. One by one, the students discovered this strange scene. They also stopped leveling and gathered around Gu Fei. One by one, they stretched out their necks to ask what was happening. I don't know. Gu Fei said. Let's go take a look. A student suggested. What are you looking at? Train properly. Gu Fei said. Teacher. A student said timidly. This is a game, not a class. Gu Fei was startled. He realized that his role was a bit out of place. These past few days of supervising the students to learn how to kill monsters efficiently, it really felt like a class. They actually treated leveling as part of their learning. Thinking of this, Gu Fei couldn't help but laugh at himself. He hurriedly changed his words. Let's go take a look. The students followed Gu Fei towards the crowd. At this time, Gu Fei followed the winding direction of the crowd. Gradually, 9,527 stones appeared in his vision. He was startled. He faintly felt that this matter might have something to do with the teaching they were doing. As he led the students forward, he suddenly felt that someone in the crowd was sizing him up. Following his senses, he saw a male and female player staring at him. The two discovered that Gu Fei had seen them. They didn't avoid him and simply walked out from the crowd to greet Gu Fei. Gu Fei didn't move. He already put one hand into his pocket and touched the Night Streamer sword. He extended his other hand and signaled for the students to stop. "What's wrong, teacher?" After a student asked, he also immediately noticed the male and female walking towards them. The two of them were very observant. Noticing Gu Fei's wariness, they immediately stopped in their tracks. The male player smiled and nodded, indicating that they were not hostile. In the end, they saw a disappointed expression on Gu Fei's face. This made the two a bit confused. In this situation, the two still walked forward. When they reached Gu Fei, they asked, "Excuse me, are you Qianli drunk?" "That's me." Gu Fei nodded. "Ah. Hello. We're online reporters from Fun Gaming Network. I didn't expect to see you here." The two immediately lost their calm and became excited. "What?" Gu Fei's eyes widened. He thought he heard wrong. "We're online reporters from Fun Gaming Network. I'm Duo Mu, and this is Mu Duo." The male player introduced himself again. "Reporters?" Gu Fei was still wondering if there was something wrong with his hearing. "Yes, if it's convenient, we hope that you can accept our interview." The male reporter Duo Mu's expression was sincere, and the female reporter Mu Duo's expression was one of anticipation. Interview. Gu Fei was still stunned. Fa hurried over. He knew that even though Gu Fei was an expert, he was still very unfamiliar with the online gaming industry. Therefore, he came over to give Gu Fei a brief introduction. Fun is currently the largest online gaming website in the country. A website can also be considered a media outlet. Of course, there will be reporters as well. As a unique carrier of online gaming, some of their reporters are stationed online, so it's convenient for them to interview influential figures in the game. Oh. Gu Fei nodded. This wasn't hard to understand. However, as someone who had never interacted with the masses before, he found it a bit refreshing. Ahem. Do you have time? Duo Mu and Mu Duo already found Gu Fei's reaction very refreshing. Could this expert who was the most feared in this parallel world be a newbie? Also, what's with the group of kids following behind him? What do you want to ask? Gu Fei asked. Let's find a quieter place. The two suggested. Before Gu Fei could say anything, the group of students was even more excited than he was. They had already heard from Gu Fei why the two guys were here. Therefore, they dragged Gu Fei along while eagerly asking the two reporters to bring them to a quieter place. Gu Fei had no choice but to let the students do whatever they wanted. In the end, the quieter place they found was only under a tree that was far away from the crowd. If you have any questions, ask away. Gu Fei said. May I ask who these kids are? The two started with their first question. Chapter 610. They're my students. Gu Fei answered honestly. Your students? Duo Mu and Mudo were astonished. It wasn't strange for students to play games, but for someone to call them his students, that was something to be curious about. Then may I ask who you are? Of course I'm their teacher. I teach physical education. Gu Fei said. Oh, physical education teacher. Duo Mu and Mudo felt that it was somewhat understandable. As expected, many people didn't even treat physical education teachers as proper teachers. Actually, physical education teacher is just my job on the surface. My real identity. I'm a grandmaster of combat who specializes in kung fu. Gu Fei said seriously. Really? Then I'm sorry. Duo Mu and Mudo hurriedly said. However, this was definitely just polite on the surface. At this time, the two of them were exchanging private messages. Grandmaster of Combat? Is there something wrong with this person? It can't be fake, right? His attire is very similar to the rumors. Think of a way to confirm his identity. After the two of them finished discussing, Duo Mu said, I heard that you sold your night streamer at a high price a while ago. I wonder if it's because you got an even scarier weapon or equipment. Gu Fei laughed, that was just a joke with a friend. I'm still using the night streamer. There were rumors that the night streamer was a fake. Duo Mu was waiting for this reply from Gu Fei. He immediately said, we've admired this sword for a long time. Do you have a chance to see it? Of course. Gu Fei took out the night streamer and set it to display. This sword was too high-end. If he didn't set it up like this, the other party wouldn't be able to appraise it. Setting it up for display was also very common. Players would definitely use it when setting up their stalls. The two of them appraised the night streamer together. The attributes were exactly the same as the collected data. Naturally, they were quite surprised. The interview officially began. Mudo took out a notebook and pen on the side like brother Yu. Duo Mu cleared his throat. Clearly, he was going to be the main interrogator. This sword has a skill called Night Streak. I wonder what it is. Duo Mu was clearly a person who liked to discuss matters as they stood. Oh, I'm not too sure about that. It hasn't been activated yet. Gu Fei said. Activating a skill was not a secret, and many players knew about its existence. Duo Mu and Mudo could be considered experienced reporters in two parallel worlds, so there was no need to ask about it. They immediately moved on to the next question. You mentioned Grandmaster of Combat just now, what is it exactly? Now that he had confirmed Gu Fei's identity, he had to understand these words that were previously regarded as crazy talk. Even if they were to report that Gu Fei was a lunatic in the future, they would still need evidence. Oh, I was born in a martial arts family and have been practicing martial arts since childhood. Gu Fei said. This must have something to do with your PvP skills in the game, right? Of course. Gu Fei nodded. Can you show us a move or two? The two asked. Our teacher's sword is used to slash people, not to perform. Fei's arrogant answer next to Gu Fei caused Duo Mu and Mudwa to be stunned. Could it be that he really is a legendary martial arts expert? In the end, they saw Gu Fei turn his head and glare fiercely at Fei. Get away from me. After yelling, he said to the two embarrassedly, I'm sorry, kids don't know any better. What do you want to see? The two were startled. They originally thought that if Gu Fei's reaction was as Fei said, he would definitely be a true expert. In the end, his politeness made the two feel that he was just so. After some thought, they said, then let's use the night streak for a set. No problem. It was rare for Gu Fei to meet someone who wasn't a professional who showed interest in his martial arts, so he treasured the opportunity. He picked up his sword and started practicing. He felt that the two wouldn't be able to understand the profound meaning behind a sword technique that was too profound. It would be a waste if they practiced it, so he immediately practiced a set of basic sword techniques used to familiarize himself with the sword. Gu Fei's 20 years of training was not fake. Although they were laymen, they could easily see how smoothly Gu Fei performed this set. But that was all. In terms of brilliance, it was far from what they saw in movies. In movies, the camera angle changed, the hair moved by an electric fan, and the background music added to the effect. Of course, it was much more awesome than what Gu Fei was doing now. Right now, Gu Fei's performance was only slightly better than broadcast gymnastics. At least there was no obvious repetition in his movements. When Gu Fei was done with his act, even the students knew that the other two fellows would definitely not approve of it. They had already understood Gu Fei's capabilities. They felt that if their teacher's performance was like that, they might as well act like Fei and reject him. Ahem, beautiful. Duo Mu and Mudwo were well-mannered. Although they didn't know what they were thinking, they still applauded and cheered after Gu Fei finished his sword technique. I'm sorry. Gu Fei continued to be humble. How many years have you been practicing this? Duo Mu continued the interview. 20 years. So you're saying that you relied on 20 years of training in real life to become invincible in the game? Duo Mu asked. Of course. Gu Fei felt like he had already asked this question. But, don't you think it's unfair to the other players? Duo Mu finally asked a question that he felt was more incisive. Oh. What do you mean? Gu Fei didn't understand. Because you're an expert in this field. Do you think it's fair to use your martial arts to defeat so many normal players in the game? Duo Mu asked. Gu Fei looked at Duo Mu suspiciously. Is it fair if I'm defeated by them? Huh? Duo Mu was startled. It's because I'm an expert in this field that I can easily defeat normal players. Isn't that fair? Gu Fei said. Ah. Duo Mu was startled again. He thought, that's right. It's very fair. Strange, why would I ask such a question? Duo Mu felt like his mind was in a mess. Although this question was asked on a whim, he didn't think it was meant that way. It was as if he had been caught off guard by Gu Fei's words. What he means is, you entered the game with your skills, so you're not on the same starting line as the other players. Don't you think that's fair? Mudwa said from the side. She could tell that Duo Mu's question had confused her. Oh. I understand what you guys mean. From your point of view, it's indeed unfair, but your question is meaningless. But your question is actually meaningless. It's just like how everyone's gender, country, appearance, family background, and environment are all different. Because of this, everyone's life has never started at the same starting line. Online games are a virtual life, so this is similar. Characters are created from the very beginning, but because of various factors, everyone is not on the same starting line. For example, some people only have time to play for 2 hours a day, while others can play for more than 10 hours. Isn't that also unfair? Mudwa quickly recorded everything Gu Fei said. Duo Mu nodded as he listened, trying to figure out other problems from Gu Fei's words. So it looks like you don't play for that long a day? Duo Mu asked. Yeah, it's been winter break, so I have a bit more free time. Gu Fei said. You haven't played for that long, but you're still at the top of the game. Can you tell me how you do it? Duo Mu asked. Gu Fei scratched his head. I don't know how to answer this question because this is my first time playing online games. There are many things I don't know. I just do what I want to do every day. Level is probably something I slowly accumulate, right? What you want to do? What does that mean? Bounty quests. Gu Fei said. Duo Mu was shocked. You're saying that you've always relied on bounty quests to accumulate experience and level? I should say after level 30. Gu Fei thought back, and I can't say everything. Occasionally I'll go to the leveling area to farm monsters. You relied on bounty quests to level up. Why is that? Confidence? Duo Mu asked. Hobbies. Gu Fei said. Love. Hobbies? Duo Mu was flabbergasted. Yup, I feel like PvP is more fun than killing monsters in the leveling area. Gu Fei said. Duo Mu and Duo Mu began to chat in private for the second time. It really is as the rumors say. PvP fanatics. That's too scary. Be careful and don't say the wrong thing. Damn, I need to put this equipment in my bag first. I can't let anything happen. This interview should have a risk subsidy. Right, I have to apply for it when I get back. The two of them muttered a few more words. Their expressions became even more dignified. Duo Mu looked at the stream of people behind them and finally asked about the main event of this interview. Next we would like to invite you to talk about the establishment of a studio. I don't know much about the specifics of the studio. Gu Fei actually liked it when they asked about Kung Fu, but it seemed like these two were like normal people and didn't have much interest in Kung Fu. Gu Fei suddenly missed his coward savior. He hadn't contacted him in a long time. You're too kind. Duo Mu said. Ask away. I'll tell you if I know. Gu Fei said. The establishment of a studio is a big deal in the online gaming world. Sword Demon, Yutian Shinming, Brother Yu, Unscathed in Battle, Kennen Yu, and of course, you are all famous people in the gaming world. May I ask how you guys came up with the idea of establishing a studio together? Duo Mu asked. Why did they want to establish a studio? This was something that the Han family young master had analyzed on that day. It was because in the current situation, this was the most effective way to earn money. Gu Fei of course knew that this was something that could only be said within the group. It wasn't convenient for him to say it out loud, especially in front of his friends who seemed to be the media. He thought for a moment and said, originally we were just a mercenary group, just playing around. Then we had nothing to do, so we established a studio. This was the same as saying nothing. Duo Mu thought for a moment and said, the current method of fighting monsters with high efficiency, was it developed by you with your martial arts? That's right, not just me, but also 100 Lives Classic. Gu Fei said. 100 Lives Classic is also a grandmaster of combat? Duo Mu hurriedly asked. Yes. The same as me. Gu Fei said. Oh, then how did you guys come up with the idea of selling this method of fighting monsters to earn money? As far as I know, there has never been such a business in the online gaming world. Duo Mu asked. It's mainly because the living space of martial artists like us is very limited. We accidentally discovered that we could use our strengths in the game. This method of leveling was also accidentally discovered, and attracted the attention of many players. That's how we came up with this idea. Gu Fei said. After that, because we didn't have enough manpower, we found a friend to cooperate with us. Yes, it was because of this that we finally established a studio. Gu Fei answered the previous question in passing and was very satisfied. So that's how it is. Then can you let us have a look at this efficient leveling method first? Duo Mu asked. No problem. Gu Fei waved his hand. Fa, go pull a small monster over. Pull it here. The two were startled. What's going on here? This place is very far from the White Mill. The two were shocked. The efficient leveling method isn't just for the White Mill leveling area. We will gradually develop every leveling area. The method will vary depending on the monster, but the efficiency will be about the same. I'll use the small monsters here to demonstrate it to you. Gu Fei said. Oh. The two replied. Fa had already pulled a small monster over. This kid really loved to show off. Seeing that everyone's eyes were on him, he decided to directly use the efficient leveling method to put on a show. This was the leveling area for the 35 small monsters that they bullied every day. He was already very familiar with the method. Fa waved his staff and circled around the small monster to receive close-range attacks. In a short while, he had killed the monster. Compared to a normal sorcerer who maintained a distance and cast spells from afar, it was much more efficient. Yes, that's about it. Gu Fei saw that Fa's performance was not bad, so he didn't personally participate in the battle. He introduced the method to the two comrades. The two were already very surprised. After hesitating for a few seconds, they asked, "This is the legendary close-range sorcerer style that you're most proficient in?" Close-range sorcerer style. Gu Fei didn't know when this term had appeared in relation to him. He immediately shook his head and said, "This isn't it. This is the most efficient way for a sorcerer to deal with these small monsters." What about group farming? Isn't it more efficient? Have you guys tested it? Mudwa interrupted and asked. Gu Fei had long since realized that this lady was a sorcerer. When she saw Fa fighting the monster, her eyes lit up. He immediately smiled and said, "That depends on your equipment. If your equipment is strong enough, then the efficiency of a sorcerer's group farming is unparalleled." Strong enough? What's considered strong enough? Mudwa asked. If you go and kill level 10 monsters right now, then you'll be considered strong enough, Gu Fei laughed. This female reporter was experienced and knowledgeable. Hearing Gu Fei's words, it was clear that it was not enough to only have a full set of top-tier equipment that matched the current level trend. It had to be equipment that surpassed levels and had an overwhelming advantage over monsters of the same level. Only then would it be enough for Gu Fei to give such an evaluation. This was clearly not something a normal person could pursue. Under normal logic, equipment that surpassed one's level shouldn't appear. However, the world was big, and nothing was too strange. The game was so vast, and Gu Fei wasn't the only one who had the opportunity to obtain the Night Streak sword. Therefore, equipment that surpassed one's level could only be obtained through various coincidences or errors. If the person in question wanted to use it, then they definitely wouldn't give it up. Even if they had to give it up, it wasn't something a normal character could bear. Then when will you start teaching at the White Mills leveling area? Mudwa asked. We'll start when the number of people sign up is enough. Gu Fei said. How many people is enough? Mudwa asked again. I'm not sure. There's someone else in charge. This included some things that couldn't be told to outsiders. Gu Fei wasn't stupid enough to say it out loud. Oh, then can I sign up now? Sure. I'll sign up. Mudwa hurriedly said, 99 gold. Gu Fei said. Mudwa didn't hesitate to hand over a bag of money. They had obviously made preparations before coming to the interview. They knew how to sign up and how to pay. Cough. Mudwa coughed on the side. Mudwa remembered that they were here for an interview. He hurriedly returned to his original state and signaled for Mudwa to continue. Are there any other questions? Gu Fei also looked at Mudwa. Mudwa took out a bag of money and handed it over to Gu Fei. I'll also sign up. Cough. This time it was Mudwa's turn to cough. Gu Fei smiled as he accepted the bag of money and said to the two, pay attention to your emails these few days. I'll send you an email when the time comes. Okay. The two nodded their heads. Then, do you have any more questions? Gu Fei asked. There are quite a few questions. If you're not busy right now, how about we go back to the city and find a tavern to sit down and have a good chat? Mudwa said after discussing it. Oh, okay then. After saying this, he turned around and said to the students, you guys continue playing. I'll go with them first. The students were curious about the interview at first, but after listening to it, they felt that it wasn't very interesting. They were already half-hearted. As soon as they heard that they could go play, they immediately ran away like wild horses. Gu Fei followed the two back to the city. After interacting with Gu Fei for a while, Mudwa felt that this person was easy to get along with and wasn't scary at all. As a result, they became bolder and discussed what questions they wanted to ask in private. At this time, in the wilderness, a group of players from Forest Shade City squeezed through the crowd and looked at the scene in front of them. They were all dumbfounded, and one of them had a very serious expression on his face. This kind of thing really did happen. That's what I've been most worried about. Yi Xiaowu said. The few people beside him didn't say anything. Silvermoon and Nonsmiler stared at the players fighting the monsters and memorized their methods. Apple Vinegar, on the other hand, slipped away after entering the crowd. Water-Breaking Arrow looked at the players fighting the monsters for a while. He summarized the attacking methods of the monsters and simplified them into the fastest and most effective way to kill them. Chapter 611. This place isn't safe. Don't stay here for too long. Broken Arrow wasn't an ordinary person. Alertness was part of his nature. He could easily tell that the players in the wilderness camp weren't friendly to each other. The visitors who had arrived earlier and weren't sure what was going on had already assimilated into the chaotic environment. It wasn't easy to find a quiet spot in the wilderness camp. They could be ambushed by other players at any time. Let's go. Yi Xiaowu called out to them. The situation here was already very obvious. Experienced players could basically guess what kind of place this place would evolve into after understanding the whole situation. Silvermoon and Nonsmiler were very greedy for this efficient leveling method, but they didn't dare to stay too long. Especially for Silvermoon, staying in such a crowded place was already very dangerous. Didn't they see that he was masked from start to finish? On the way out of the wilderness camp, the two of them were calculating in their hearts. They had been following Yi Xiaowu for a week. The two of them had been hoping that Yi Xiaowu would have some sharp tricks up his sleeves, or that they could get some benefits from him. In the end, they didn't get anything. Yi Xiaowu was like an ordinary player. He went online every day and did the same thing. Silvermoon and Nonsmiler sometimes found excuses to follow him, but they couldn't see anything special about him. Until now, the most eye-catching time they saw Yi Xiaowu was when he showed off his alchemy skills. Other than that, he was just an ordinary player who hadn't even reached level 40. The two of them had also lived a very unsatisfactory life. They thought that they had found an amazing backer and could usher in a new and glorious future. However, after spending a long time with him, they realized that it was just that. He was really capable. After so long, they didn't even see a mercenary group, let alone a guild. The two of them had been following him silently. It was all thanks to the 20,000 gold coins they had spent to buy South Blade's group a few days ago. This made Silvermoon and Nonsmiler quite excited. They felt that Yi Xiaowu was a stupid and rich person. Sooner or later, they would benefit from following him. However, they had just seen the news on the forum this morning. Drunk Qianli's group had established a workshop, and South Blade's name was impressively on the list. This was a little confusing. Nonsmiler was the first to see this news. He hurriedly looked for Silvermoon, and then the two of them informed Yi Xiaowu together. Silvermoon angrily reprimanded Jian Nanyu for being unrighteous. At the same time, she wanted to see Yi Xiaowu's reaction to this matter. However, Yi Xiaowu just answered calmly, "I already knew it." It turned out that after Jian Nanyu decided to cooperate with Gu Fei, he bade farewell to the past, including informing Yi Xiaowu to cut off the business with him. At that time, Jian Nanyu was rather glad that he didn't take a deposit for the 20,000 gold coins transaction. Otherwise, he would have to pay for it painfully. Silvermoon and Nonsmiler were at a loss. They had no idea what this weird priest named Hengchen Yixiao was planning. Afterwards, Silvermoon casually mentioned that these guys had established a workshop and wanted to sell some kind of high-leveling method. She originally wanted to see if Yi Xiaowu had any way to deal with Thousand Miles Drunk's group, which was growing stronger and stronger. Who would have thought that Yi Xiaowu would suddenly be so sensitive about the high-leveling method? After inquiring about the situation in detail, she immediately decided to head to Baishur City's wilderness camp to see what was going on. In fact, after the auction of the ideal staff, Yi Xiaowu and his gang returned to Shady Forest City. They said that they wanted to deal with Qianli and his gang, but they didn't stay in Baishur City and went to Shady Forest City. This puzzled Silvermoon and her gang. However, Baishur City happened to be very dangerous for Silvermoon at that time, so she quite liked this decision. Glue and his gang couldn't find Silvermoon all those days because she wasn't in Baishur City at all. Now that they returned to Baishur City, Silvermoon even changed her clothes and masked herself. However, at this time, no players in Baishur City cared about what Silvermoon was. Everyone was talking about one word, the leveling method. Silvermoon and Nonsmiler were also experienced players. They could see the value of this leveling method at a glance. However, the two of them immediately judged that it was somewhat unrealistic to rely on this leveling method to level up in the wilderness camp. This place had been known by too many people. If this continued, in the end, only the powerful guilds would be able to occupy it. No matter what, private individuals would not be able to gain any advantage. In any case, selling this leveling method was a big deal. Everyone could see this. Silvermoon and Nonsmiler were very jealous, especially when combined with the loneliness of the two at this time. They were extremely unhappy. After seeing that Yi Xiaowu was also very unhappy with this leveling method, they hurriedly continued to add fuel to the fire. Silvermoon and Nonsmiler were also experienced players. Sword Demon and Han family young master realized that this leveling method would have a huge impact on the game. Of course, the two of them also had insight, so what they said was also clear and logical. From this point of view, criticizing these people's behavior was really on the same line as Yi Xiaowu. It was rare for Yi Xiaowu to really seriously discuss the problem with these two people. Silvermoon and the non-smiler had not completely lost hope in Yi Xiaowu. They always felt that this person had spent a lot of money and effort to gather people like them who had a grudge against 1,000 miles drunk, so he must have a plan. Moreover, he should know about the water-breaking arrow. The two of them could clearly see that Yi Xiaowu treated Broken Arrow differently from them. He and Broken Arrow were true friends, and perhaps they were also pawns in this matter. Being a pawn wasn't scary. What was scary was that the pawn didn't know where his next move was. So the two of them had always wanted to find out how Yi Xiaowu dealt with Qianli's drunk. Today, they finally caught a very important piece of information. They had always thought that Yi Xiaowu was like the two of them, that a few levels were destroyed by Qianli's drunk, so he harbored resentment and wanted to take revenge. In order to establish a close relationship with him, the two of them often criticized Qianli's ruthlessness and so on. But Yi Xiaowu didn't seem to have much of a reaction. At this moment, the two of them finally realized that this Heng Chen Yixiao's focus on Qianli's drunk did not seem to be from a personal grudge. He seemed to be very concerned about some of the damage that Qianli's drunk's actions would cause to this parallel world game. Could this guy really be someone from the game company? Silvermoon and the non-smiler began their private chat again. They had this suspicion for a long time, but they couldn't be sure. After all, everyone knew that people from the game company prohibited their own games. If he's not from the game company, why would he care so much about this kind of thing? The non-smiler said. Mental illness? Silvermoon guessed. I think he's quite normal. The non-smiler wiped his sweat. Don't you think he's usually secretive, as if there are some things he doesn't want us to know? Silvermoon asked. Kind of, a little. The non-smiler didn't dare to be sure. Do you think he's originally someone from the game company, and then left? Silvermoon's guess was close to the truth. If that's the case, why would he still care so much about the game? The non-smiler asked. That's true. Silvermoon agreed with the non-smiler's question. For these two extremely selfish guys, Yi Xiaowu's behavior of stubbornly protecting the game at the expense of his own self was something they couldn't imagine. The two muttered for a long time but couldn't come to any conclusion, so they could only continue to find Yi Xiaowu to get some information. But now that they had a deeper understanding of Yi Xiaowu, for these two guys who were good at dealing with people, it was easier to strike up a conversation with him. 1,000 miles drunk's irresponsible behavior, we must think of a way to stop it, Silvermoon said. That's right. The non-smiler enthusiastically followed. N. Yi Xiaowu responded faintly. While Silvermoon and non-smiler were whispering to each other, Yi Xiaowu and Broken Water Arrow were also secretly passing on the news. These two guys, you don't really believe their attitude, do you? Water-breaking Arrow asked. Only ghosts would believe it. Yi Xiaowu said, how many more days does old Kai need? About 4 days, that's already the limit. Water-breaking Arrow said. It's been hard on him. I've inquired about the announcement of Qianli's studio. Their next step is to continue teaching at the White Mill, and they're currently accepting applications. But looking at the enthusiasm of the players, I'm afraid their matter will progress very quickly. In 4 days, they might have already finished teaching at the White Mill and moved on to the next place. Water-breaking Arrow said. I didn't expect this guy to reach this level so quickly. What's the fuse for this matter? Why did he suddenly want to announce this to the outside world? I think with his level, he should have already mastered this kind of playing method. Yi Xiaowu muttered. Who knows? Water-breaking Arrow also couldn't answer. At present, the wilderness camp has been destroyed by him. White Mill, if we can delay and save it, we should try our best. Yi Xiaowu said. As long as we fight for these 4 days. Water-breaking Arrow said firmly. Yi Xiaowu didn't speak again and just nodded. On the other side, Silvermoon and Non-Smiler were still vigorously denouncing Gu Fei's behavior, hoping that Yi Xiaowu could follow up and then take the opportunity to reveal his plan. In the end, Yi Xiaowu just said indifferently. They didn't know whether or not he had listened to what the two said. Silvermoon really couldn't hold back and finally couldn't help but say, "If there's anything you need us to do, just say it." Non-Smiler was startled because from the beginning, the two had decided to fish in troubled waters and resolutely not be the vanguard. But at this time, Silvermoon suddenly volunteered, and not only did he invite himself, but also, that dragged Non-Smiler along. How could he not be anxious? For a moment, Non-Smiler didn't treat Silvermoon as a comrade anymore. He thought to himself, "You're only level 30 now. Barefooted isn't afraid of wearing shoes. I'm level 41 now. If I drop one level, how many levels can I compare to you? This bastard." Non-Smiler was angry in his heart. On the other side, Silvermoon unexpectedly sent him another message. "If you don't give up the child, you won't get the wolf. I think if we don't give up some blood, we really won't get any benefits." Non-Smiler thought about it and felt that it made sense, but he didn't know what benefits there were. Suddenly, he had to take such a big risk to get drunk and fight with Qinli. Non-Smiler felt that his legs and stomach were trembling. Then he thought about it carefully. Silvermoon was still a knight after all. His King's Sword's trump card skill was also a support skill. If they really had a head-on conflict, how could he be the vanguard? Fuck. I've been sold by this bastard. Non-Smiler suddenly felt this way. At the same time, he realized that his viciousness was still a notch lower than Silvermoon's. This guy was worthy of being a person who immediately abandoned his wife and brothers after the guild went bankrupt. He really wasn't hesitant when it came to selling out his friends. Non-Smiler felt like strangling Silvermoon to death, but on the surface, he didn't show it. At this time, Silvermoon had already volunteered on behalf of him, and Non-Smiler couldn't refuse anymore. He immediately expressed to Yi Xiaowu that he was willing to do his best. But in his heart, he was calculating. If he didn't end up well, he must drag Silvermoon, this brother, to live and die with him. But, even if they died together, the value of his level and Silvermoon's level was still very different. Non-Smiler was depressed. Yup, we really can't drag this on anymore to deal with Qinli drunk. Yi Xiaowu seemed to be infected by the enthusiasm of the two. "Old broken arrow, where's the apple cider vinegar?" Yi Xiaowu asked. "It's already in place." Water-breaking arrow said. "Very good, give the ring of leadership to Silvermoon." Yi Xiaowu said. Silvermoon's eyes lit up. He didn't think that the other side had already obtained the ring of leadership. With the ring of leadership, his King's Sword could be fully activated. Water-breaking arrow didn't hesitate either. He took out the ring of leadership and gave it to Silvermoon. After Silvermoon received it, he immediately equipped it. He then took out the King's Sword. The sword's body was already shining brightly. It couldn't hide the golden light, making people feel a trace of warmth when they looked at it. "You two, go to these coordinates." Yi Xiaowu handed the two a piece of paper. Silvermoon took it and looked at it. It was just a simple set of coordinates. It should be within Whitestone City. "Where is this?" the two asked. "The place where you two ambush is also the place where Qinli drunk will be taken care of." "Oh. What plan?" the two asked. "We will set up an ambush here. Old Duan will lure Qinli drunk here. You two will be our surprise soldiers. You will play a decisive role," Yi Xiaowu said. "Ah. Silvermoon's King's command is naturally unparalleled. What about me? Where will my decisive role be?" Unsmiler was puzzled. He still knew his own worth. He was just an ordinary expert and didn't have a top-notch godly weapon like Silvermoon's King's Sword. How could he be decisive? Because this is Whitestone City. A thief's stealth will be interrupted by the white lime that everyone here has. Only you, who has vanish, can re-enter stealth after being interrupted. So you will be the one to launch the decisive attack. Yi Xiaowu said to him. So it's like this. Unsmiler suddenly understood. He had been in Whitestone City for a while and knew the magical effects of the white lime. Then where are the people who will team up with us? Silvermoon asked. There's no need to team up. Yi Xiaowu said. No need to team up. Then my king's command. Silvermoon didn't understand. To be honest, we don't have many people. With Qianli Drunk's strength, we can't directly deal with him with a buff from the king's command. Their mission is only to exhaust Qianli Drunk. So don't waste the king's command on them. The king's command will only buff Unsmiler. Yi Xiaowu said. Alone? I think you've always used the king's sword's king's command skill, right? Yi Xiaowu laughed. Yeah, why? Try using it like a knight's blessing. Choose a target and try using the king's command. Yi Xiaowu said. Silvermoon was startled. She immediately chose herself as the target of blessing and used the king's command. When she looked at her own stats, she was so shocked that she couldn't close her mouth. If you use the king's command on a single target, your stats won't increase by 15%, but by 30%. Do you understand now? Yi Xiaowu said. Greatly increase Unsmiler's strength so that he can get close to Qianli Drunk in the chaos and give him a fatal blow? Silvermoon said. The two of you can think about the specifics based on the situation. If there isn't a good opportunity, don't make a move. After all, your strength is very important to us. We can't afford to lose any more of you. Yi Xiaowu said. The two of them were comfortable from head to toe. They had been wild dogs for a long time. They didn't know when they were last valued like this. However, their opponent was 1,000 miles drunk, so the two of them wouldn't let their guard down just because of flattery. Without laughing, he asked, perhaps this fellow 1,000 miles drunk has some sort of anti-stealth method. Perhaps he doesn't even need the white lime to discover my location, and a sneak attack might not succeed. Unsmiler's first heroic death was when Gu Fei saw through his stealth. The memory was still fresh in his mind. At this time, Water-Breaking Arrow came out to teach him a lesson. Qianli Drunk's anti-stealth doesn't rely on equipment, but on intuition. Intuition? That's right. It's through long-term targeted training that allows the body to sense the changes in the surrounding aura. This characteristic is simulated in the parallel world, so he can rely on intuition to find the location of the stealthy person. However, this intuition has a subjective condition. The target he can detect must be the target who is paying attention to him. I think you should understand. Broken Arrow said. I don't understand. Explain clearly. Unsmiler said. When approaching him, don't pay full attention to him. Remember his position and approach. If necessary, you can let Silvermoon give you some hints. In short, as long as you don't pay attention to him, you won't be discovered. When you get close to him, then make a move. By then, it'll be too late for him to capture your position. Broken Arrow said. So that's how it is. Unsmiler suddenly understood. And at this time, he's being besieged. There are many people paying attention to him. His intuition will also be a bit chaotic. He won't capture you too accurately, so you can rest assured. Broken Arrow said. So our chances of success are very high. Silvermoon said. It's all up to you too. Yi Xiaowu said. I have a question. Since it's like this, why do we need to set up an ambush? After we find Qianli Drunk, we can directly surround him. Unsmiler and I can wait for an opportunity to sneak attack. Isn't that the same? Silvermoon said. How is it the same? How do you know that Qianli Drunk is alone? Yi Xiaowu asked. Silvermoon stared blankly. He immediately thought of Gu Fei's terrifying friends. With our abilities, it's already difficult to fight against Qianli Drunk alone. If he has helpers, how can we succeed? So we must set up an ambush and wait for Qianli drunk to take the bait. Yi Xiaowu said. Chapter 612. Silvermoon and Nonsmiler both headed towards the coordinates Yi Xiaowu had indicated. The two each had their own ulterior motives, and for a moment, neither spoke. Nonsmiler didn't expect that he would shoulder the heavy responsibility of giving Qianli a fatal blow. Although he often fantasized about such a scene, when the opportunity was really placed in front of him, his first thought was nothing else but to retreat. At this moment, he only had one kind of mood, and that was to force a duck onto a perch. Would Qianli really fall so easily under his sword when he was drunk? Nonsmiler was very doubtful. He had to see the situation clearly, and if anything went wrong, he had to dodge immediately. On Silvermoon's side, although as a support, he didn't have to face the risk of Qianli getting drunk, he had already thought that if the plan failed, Nonsmiler was a thief, and if he dashed away, drunken Qianli definitely wouldn't be able to catch up. At that time, it would be a complete and utter tragedy for drunken Qianli. With his full agility, drunken Qianli could catch up to him in 2 or 3 moves. He had to see the situation clearly, and if anything went wrong, he had to make plans in advance, or else he definitely wouldn't be able to escape. Having already made up their minds for their retreat, the two couldn't help but look a bit more relaxed. Only now did they have the time to look at the guy beside them. At this moment, Nonsmiler was already very dissatisfied with Silvermoon, but Silvermoon thought that he needed Nonsmiler and Qianli to fight and buy time for him to escape, so he behaved more cordially. Brother Nonsmiler. The time to make a name for yourself has come. If you want to stab Qianli to death and get drunk, I'll immediately go offline and cheer for you on the forums. When the time comes, you'll take the lead, and us two brothers will make a comeback together. Silvermoon said. Nonsmiler secretly spat, thinking that this kid really wanted to abandon him. These words were clearly luring him and Qianli to get drunk and risk their lives. Thinking this in his heart, he smiled happily on the surface. You don't have to be too modest. This is all thanks to the strengthening of your king's command state. When the time comes, you have to stick close to me. If I can't instantly kill 1,000 miles drunk with this slash, you can quickly follow up with another slash. Silvermoon's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He realized that Nonsmiler was just as cunning as he was, and seemed to have sensed his intentions. His words were clearly saying that he was going to risk his life, and that Silvermoon shouldn't be idle either. Ha ha ha. Silvermoon didn't reveal anything on his face. He laughed and said, "What are you talking about? We brothers are now grasshoppers on the same rope, advancing and retreating together. It's a pity that I don't know how to move stealthily. If I reveal myself too early, Qianli will be alerted and that won't be good." "Hey, now that you mention it, I've got a pretty good idea," said the Nonsmiler. "What idea?" Silvermoon asked suspiciously. "You and Qianli have a deep grudge against each other after getting drunk. He'll definitely chop you up if he sees you, right?" "What do you mean?" "If you suddenly reveal yourself during the fight, I think you'll definitely attract a portion of Qianli's attention. That way, it'll be easier for me to get close to him, and it'll be easier for me to succeed. Don't you think so?" The Nonsmiler laughed happily. No. Qianli's attack speed is astonishing, and he can teleport. If I reveal myself, there's an 80% chance that he'll teleport over and kill me instantly. It won't even take a second. Even though I'm level 30 and dying once isn't a big deal, the problem is that I won't be able to attract his attention, and my king's command status will be gone. Won't I drag you into this, Brother Nonsmiler?" Silvermoon said. "Brother Silvermoon, you've forgotten that there are other people lying in ambush. We have to consider the consumption of these people's attacks on Qianli. Qianli's drunken is an all-agility mage, so he doesn't have much mana. I think by the time we make a move, his mana will have pretty much been consumed. Teleportation, magic attacks, how can he use these without mana?" The Nonsmiler said. "Brother, we can't use common sense to speculate about Qianli's drunken. Silvermoon said seriously, who knows if he'll use spells to consume mana against those people. As far as I know, he didn't use any spells when he chased you, Brother Non-Smiler, right? Ha, at that time everyone's levels were still low. Besides, I'm just a small character, so of course I'm not worth him using spells. But times have changed. Brother Silvermoon also knows about the water-breaking arrows skill, right? How could Qianli deal with him as casually as he did with me when he was drunk? The Non-Smiler said. That's not true, brother, you see, these two guys had been so eccentric along the way. On the surface, they looked harmonious, but their words were full of sarcasm and even personal attacks. The two had the same thought, if there's an advantage, I'll take it. If there's a death, you can go. In the end, they were evenly matched. They discussed, peacefully, all the way to the coordinates without any results. It really was hard for the two to be so eloquent. This place. When they arrived at the location, the two finally stopped their secret battle for a while. Both of them began to observe the terrain. The Non-Smiler walked around and found that the street corner 200 meters away was actually the exchange hall. This was a super safe zone. The Non-Smiler looked back and saw that Silvermoon was still wandering around on another street. He hurriedly ran over and stopped him. After pointing to the street corner, he said sternly, "Brother, let's stop joking. That's the exchange hall. When the time comes to fight, if you find something wrong, don't worry about me. Hurry and come over here. I'll do my best to help you stall him for a while." Silvermoon was startled and tightly grasped the Non-Smiler's hands. "Brother, don't say anything." The Non-Smiler pulled out a hand and lightly patted the back of Silvermoon's hand. "With your level, if you drop again, I'm guessing you won't have the mood to play anymore. You must protect it. Just because of what you said, I can't drop again no matter what." Silvermoon nodded firmly. After the Non-Smiler also nodded, he immediately looked around and asked, "Have the other people lying in ambush arrived yet?" "I'll ask." Silvermoon said and sent a message to Yi Xiaowu, telling him that they were already in position but didn't see other people lying in ambush. "Hee, it seems like they hid it very well. You two didn't realize they were lying in ambush?" Yi Xiaowu said. "Where?" Silvermoon was at a loss. "Where exactly are you right now?" Yi Xiaowu asked. "At the corner of this T-shaped street corner. The coordinates you gave me are here," Silvermoon said. "Then, look southeast," Yi Xiaowu said. Silvermoon looked southeast. "Look at what? What's over there?" Yi Xiaowu asked. Silvermoon suddenly understood. "The two stalls on the street corner?" "Yes," Yi Xiaowu said. Silvermoon pulled back the Non-Smiler and pointed to the two stalls. "On our side?" the Non-Smiler asked. Silvermoon nodded. "These two guys aren't even level 40. The Non-Smiler frowned. Silvermoon asked Yi Xiaowu this question. Yi Xiaowu only lightly replied, "You aren't level 40 either. You're also a very important person." Silvermoon immediately understood. Level wasn't the key. The key was probably what special skills these two had. Just like his King's Command and Non-Smiler's Disappear, these were skills that normal players didn't have. They had obtained them for special reasons. These skills themselves didn't necessarily have any abnormal power, but the key was that they existed outside of normal players' knowledge. So when they suddenly encountered them, it was hard to not know what to do. Everyone had a lot of experience with skills like Whirlwind Slash, Backstab, and Rapid Fireball, but what if they encountered a skill they didn't understand at all? Suddenly, Silvermoon's confidence soared. He had originally thought that these characters surrounding Qianli's drunk were all cannon fodder, but now it seemed like everyone had a set. Each of them would use their own special skills to make Qianli's drunk dizzy, and then he and Non-Smiler would deal the fatal blow. This setup was truly brilliant. Apart from these two? Silvermoon asked again. You guys can't see thieves in stealth. When the others need them, they'll pass by. Yi Xiaowu said. So it's like that. You've calculated the time? Silvermoon asked. As long as we have a clear grasp of the terrain, we can calculate the time at any time. Right now, Breaking Arrow is still looking for Qianli's whereabouts. You two should first hide yourselves. Don't attract attention. Yi Xiaowu said. No problem. Silvermoon and Non-Smiler weren't weak in this area. And when Non-Smiler heard Silvermoon's description of Yi Xiaowu's arrangements, he and Silvermoon instantly felt their confidence ignite. He had originally thought that everyone was a group of reckless people, but now that he discovered that the plan was so meticulous, he immediately felt a strong sense of security. The two of them managed to disguise themselves and patiently waited. Thinking about how they would have a chance to kill their enemy, Qianli's drunk, the two of them were both nervous and excited. Even the back of their hands were sweating. Attention, attention. After waiting for who knew how long, the two of them suddenly received a message from Yi Xiaowu. They immediately acted as if they were facing a great enemy. The two of them grabbed their weapons and hurriedly replied, "Direction, direction." Every street led here. The two of them needed to know which street Qianli's drunk had come from. But just as they finished asking, they saw players suddenly jump out from several streets. Their intentions were unknown, but their direction was clearly towards the street where the two of them were. Fuck, this is the only way to pass by. Silvermoon was furious. He felt that these guys were too outrageous. Didn't they say they were just pretending to pass by? Running so energetically, wouldn't they attract too much attention? Compared to those two pretending to set up a stall, the difference was too great. The quality of these people was too uneven, and it was really a big problem. Thinking back to when he was the guild leader, Silvermoon's thoughts flew off into the distance, and these players quickly ran to the end of the street and looked around. They were as ostentatious as they could be. Silvermoon couldn't hold it in anymore. Even though she felt like her hidden character shouldn't be exposed so early, if they continued to act like this, the entire trap would be exposed. What was the point of hiding? Silvermoon wanted to reach out and gesture at the guy in front of him, indicating that he shouldn't make such a big move. After waiting for this person to turn in his direction, Silvermoon couldn't wait to gesture. Suddenly, he saw the person's face, and almost automatically twisted his neck, turning his head to the side. At the same time, his thoughts began to twist. How could it be him? This him was an ordinary character for ordinary players, but for Silvermoon, this was an exception. This was because this was his companion from Dust Guild in Moonlit Night City. This kind of person would definitely want to kill Silvermoon if they saw him now. In that instant, Silvermoon felt that he understood Yi Xiaowu's painstaking efforts. No wonder he felt that he didn't participate much in the plan, so there was this kind of character. It wasn't convenient to meet him, and at this critical moment, launching an attack from a hidden angle was the best choice. With this thought, Silvermoon actually had a mentality of looking at the big picture. He pretended to be a passerby, wanting to stay away from this guy. Silvermoon was now very good at disguising himself. As expected, the player didn't recognize Silvermoon. Silvermoon secretly rejoiced. It wasn't convenient for him to show his face. He was thinking about whether to ask Non-Smiler to remind these people not to be too arrogant, or to find the two players who set up the stall. After thinking about it, Silvermoon felt that asking Non-Smiler was a bit too obvious. It was easier to find the players who set up the stall and pretend to buy goods. However, when his gaze turned to the two players who were selling goods, he saw that the two of them were a bit frightened by the sudden appearance of the players. At this moment, they were packing up their things, and it seemed like they were about to leave. Is Qianli drunk about to appear? Are they going to make a move? Silvermoon's gaze looked around, but he couldn't find the figure that he was afraid of. In such a short time, the two players had already packed up and left. Silvermoon suddenly felt that something was wrong, and was about to send a message to ask, when he received a message from Non-Smiler. "Trouble, I saw my enemy." "Your enemy?" Silvermoon didn't understand. July, from Cloud City. I don't know why she came here. Non-Smiler said. Silvermoon was startled. He had met a former colleague who had a grudge against him, and Non-Smiler had met a woman who had a huge dispute with him, but the two players who set up the stall actually left on their own. Oh no, it can't be a trap, right? Silvermoon replied. What's wrong? I also met my enemy. Also, the two guys who set up the stall have left. Where are you now? Silvermoon asked. I went into stealth, Non-Smiler replied. Silvermoon was about to cry, because when he looked up, he saw another comrade from his former guild. 2 in a row, this shouldn't be a coincidence, right? These people seem to be looking for someone. Could it be that they were looking for him? Non-Smiler's enemy also appeared here. Could it be that they were looking for Non-Smiler? Non-Smiler had stealth, and even if he ran, he had speed. Perhaps escaping wouldn't be difficult, but what about himself? Moreover, his enemy was far scarier than him. Old colleagues, old rivals, how many people were there? Could it be that they were all here already? Silvermoon didn't dare look at these players who had suddenly arrived. He was like a normal passing player, walking his own path at a moderate pace. Although he wanted to leave this area immediately, he knew in his heart that he couldn't rush it. Silvermoon, where are you going? Suddenly, Silvermoon heard this shout, and his face turned ashen. As expected, as soon as this voice came out, there was a great commotion among the players. Their gazes began to lock onto the players who were about to walk past. Was it that punk Non-Smiler? For a moment, Silvermoon couldn't tell who it was. He immediately thought that perhaps Non-Smiler deliberately shouted to attract attention, and then he took the opportunity to escape. In the end, before this thought disappeared, he immediately heard another shout, Non-Smiler, stop stealth. Trap, it's definitely a premeditated trap. At this moment, Silvermoon had no doubts. This was definitely a big trap for him and Non-Smiler. Silvermoon angrily opened his friends list and questioned Yi Xiaowu. What do you mean, why did you betray us? The coordinates were given by Yi Xiaowu, and whatever ambush was also said by him. At this time, Silvermoon finally understood completely. There was no ambush, but there was a trap. It was just aimed at him and Non-Smiler. Silvermoon just didn't understand. He had no enmity with Non-Smiler and Yi Xiaowu, so why did they have to set them up like this? Especially himself, who was originally in a terrible situation. It was Yi Xiaowu who dragged him out of the fire, but now he was pushed back into it again. What was the purpose of this? Silvermoon's message was like a stone sinking into the sea, and he didn't get a reply. At this time, he didn't dare to pretend to be calm. Because of the shout, his old colleagues began to seriously inspect the passing players. It would be strange if they didn't recognize him in this situation. Silvermoon saw that 2 people were already walking in his direction. He quickly scanned the situation around him, and suddenly waved his sword. After the golden light bathed him, he ran. It's Silvermoon, here. These people knew what Silvermoon's, King's Command, skill looked like. When they saw this guy glowing with golden light, they immediately saw through it. Many people immediately turned around and rushed in this direction. After the buff, all attributes were increased by 30%. In addition, with the Ring of Leadership, Silvermoon had reactivated the King's Sword. This sword's damage wasn't just for show. Silvermoon rushed out and cut down 2 players who came to block his way. At this time, he had no other choice but to go to the exchange hall 200 meters away. This place was pointed out to him by Non-Smiler. The 2 of them had been arguing on the way here. Silvermoon didn't believe that Non-Smiler was kind enough to give him such a way to escape, but at this time, he really had no other choice. Non-Smiler's current situation was indeed much better than Silvermoon's. With the advantage of stealth, he didn't rush to expose himself. He had been secretly observing Silvermoon's movements. As soon as he saw Silvermoon suddenly start to move, he immediately ran in the direction he had chosen earlier. Non-Smiler, who had pointed out the exchange hall to Silvermoon, didn't have good intentions. He had expected that after Silvermoon knew the location of the exchange hall, once the situation changed, with Silvermoon's class, if he didn't want to die, his only choice was to temporarily hide here. In this way, Non-Smiler was equivalent to knowing everyone's next move, because everyone would definitely chase in that direction. Non-Smiler only wanted to take advantage of this one step, but this was originally aimed at Qianli alone. He didn't expect the situation to suddenly change, and so many opponents suddenly appeared. However, no matter who the opponents were, and how many there were, Silvermoon ultimately only had one way out. Non-Smiler let out a long sigh, because he discovered that the people who came to kill Silvermoon were much more than the people who stayed behind to find him. Non-Smiler still didn't dare to act blindly without thinking, because he saw that Qianli had already appeared on the street. Chapter 613. Non-Smiler wasn't familiar with Gu Fei's silhouette. His deepest impression of Gu Fei was the new technique robe with a mask and a single blade. Now that Gu Fei's black-clothed image was well known, this outfit was certainly much better than the original one from the perspective of equipment. But for Non-Smiler, that outfit was where his shadow was. Facing the black-robed Gu Fei, his psychological pressure was actually a little less. But at this time, Non-Smiler was still conflicted. Because the direction in which Gu Fei came was originally the route he had carefully chosen for his retreat. But if he went from this direction now, the two of them were bound to pass each other. For Non-Smiler, there was absolutely nothing more dangerous than this in the game. He firmly believed that Gu Fei could anti-stealth, but was the anti-stealth method really like what Broken Arrow said about intuition? After being blatantly betrayed, Broken Arrow's fantasy-like words made Non-Smiler even more unconvinced. Under such circumstances, how would he dare to experiment and walk around Gu Fei? He couldn't take this safe path anymore. Non-Smiler made up his mind and was already prepared to carefully pass through the army of women brought by July. But at this moment, the girls, led by July, suddenly each took out a cloth bag and reached out to grab and wave. White lime had already spread out at the end of the street. Non-Smiler almost crawled to avoid being hit by a ball of white lime. In a panic, he hurriedly retreated. At this time, if his stealth was broken by the white lime, he would definitely be surrounded. In that case, it would be useless for him to disappear. Even if he disappeared, he couldn't turn people transparent and pass through them. Non-Smiler was depressed and hated the fact that there wasn't even a chance to crawl under a table on the street. This open space at a glance would sooner or later be scattered by them with white lime. And the escape route behind him was even more terrifying. Once Qianli was drunk, it was even more out of the scope of consideration. In any case, if he was discovered, he would die. Non-Smiler gritted his teeth and decided to take the risk. Non-Smiler aimed at a girl and slowly approached. Just as he was about to be sprinkled with white lime, he suddenly appeared. The girl cried out in alarm, but she still hid the white lime in her hand. Non-Smiler didn't have time to hide, and there was no need for him to hide. He took a big stride forward, and after being sprinkled with white lime, he was already behind the girl. He stabbed her with his knife and stabbed her in the back. Then, he grabbed the girl's arm and twisted it. He had already flashed behind her and shouted, "Don't move, Luo Luo. Don't use your healing spell." The sudden change startled all the women. Luo Luo was about to use her healing technique, but she didn't want to be called out by the Non-Smiler in advance. She quickly understood the Non-Smiler's intentions and immediately stopped moving. On the other hand, the girl who was being held by the Non-Smiler struggled endlessly. The Non-Smiler only had one arm and it was a little strenuous, so he simply used his arm to choke the girl's neck. "Worthy of being an old friend, you understand my intentions very well," said No Laugh. "Are you even human?" July's face was ashen. Especially when she thought of the relationship she had with this guy, July felt like vomiting. "I'm human, and someone who knows you very well. This method will definitely work on you, won't it?" The Non-Smiler indeed knew July very well. In the game, no one would take hostages seriously. Only a girl like July would care, especially since this was a personal grudge between her and the non-smiler. Under such circumstances, the non-smiler guessed that July definitely wouldn't do such a thing. In order to protect her friend, as long as his request wasn't too outrageous, she would definitely compromise. However, it wasn't that easy to control a hostage. After all, it was still a game, and the loss of death was just a drop in level. The hostage wouldn't be that afraid, and of course, there was no need to cooperate. So the non-smiler chose this weak mage. The moment the non-smiler appeared, he used Identify and hurriedly scanned the person's level and equipment. After confirming that she wouldn't be instantly killed by his backstab, the non-smiler delivered a backstab. The non-smiler was a thief who invested a lot in strength, so it wasn't difficult to hold a mage hostage. And this mage had already taken a backstab from him. Next, he only needed to casually stab her to kill her. At this moment, the non-smiler was very careful, afraid that this hostage would deliberately knock her body against his dagger. Tell Qianli not to come over once he's drunk, hurry. The non-smiler knew that the hostage in his hands was actually of little value. He was only relying on the mutual love and friendship between these girls, but what if there was a friendship that wasn't very deep? So the non-smiler didn't dare to delay, and immediately put forward his request. Qianli, don't come over, please. July had already seen Gu Fei, especially after the non-smiler had already begun to run after appearing. She hurriedly sent a message to Gu Fei. However, Gu Fei had never been in the mood to chat, and he wouldn't check any messages at such a critical moment, so he simply ignored her and strode over. July was shocked. Although she saw the non-smiler wrongly, she still had some understanding of this guy. In a desperate situation, this guy would definitely drag two people down with him even if it meant his death. Qianli, don't come over. In a moment of desperation, July could only shout at the top of her lungs. At least to let the non-smiler know that she had indeed done as he said. Ah. What did you say? Gu Fei didn't seem to hear her clearly, and ran even faster. In fact, he had already heard what July shouted, and even saw the non-smiler holding Ice Glaze hostage, so he had a rough idea of what was going on. At this time, he pretended not to hear, and also wanted to get closer to the scene. Don't come over. July was anxious, and Luo hurriedly ran out to stop Gu Fei. Are you pretending not to hear me? Luo saw through Gu Fei's little scheme. Cough, how could I? What are you guys busy with? Gu Fei pretended to be relaxed as he passed by. Don't play dumb here. The non-smiler saw that Gu Fei finally stopped, and let out a long sigh of relief. Even so, he didn't dare to be careless, and used Ice Glaze as a shield between him and Gu Fei. Hurry up and make way for me. The non-smiler didn't dare to stay any longer, and hurriedly shouted for everyone to move to the sides. Can you kill him? Luo whispered to Gu Fei. What's his HP? In fact, Gu Fei had already entered the range where he could attack the non-smiler with spells, but he wasn't sure if he could kill him in one shot. If he was sure, he would have already used a lightning spell. I just appraised his equipment, a conservative estimate is XXX. Luo said. No, I can't kill him in one shot. Unless I can get close. Gu Fei calculated the damage of the lightning spell, and it wasn't enough to kill the non-smiler. Don't you know how to teleport? Luo said. Miss, I'm still 8 meters away from him. Gu Fei said. So if I don't stop you, then he's probably already desperate. Gu Fei sighed. The non-smiler was an enemy he had offended a long time ago. He was probably the imaginary enemy in his dreams, so how could he not be on guard against his teleportation? Why are you still rushing when you know? Luo said. I just want to see who it is. Gu Fei said. The non-smiler, you don't recognize him? Luo asked. If I don't come closer, how would I recognize him? Gu Fei said, look, he's still hiding his head. What are you two whispering about? The non-smiler roared. Gu Fei had always been the one he paid attention to. He found that he wasn't as nervous as the other girls. He was chatting passionately with Luo, which made the non-smiler's heart fill with resentment. You guys do what you need to do. Gu Fei waved his hand, indicating that everyone should ignore him and Luo. The girls were speechless, and the non-smiler urged again, hurry up and make way. July was also looking forward to Gu Fei's arrival, so everyone knowingly made way slowly. Gu Fei and Luo had already chatted for so long, but they still hadn't made way. The non-smiler felt that his patience was greatly challenged. He was about to speak, but unexpectedly, Gu Fei was on his side. Everyone, hurry up and make way. Don't dawdle. Everyone was surprised, and even the non-smiler was a little puzzled. In the end, he heard Gu Fei continue, let him go quickly, so that I can chase after him. The non-smiler vomited blood. He was about to say something when he suddenly heard someone yell at the top of their lungs, "Ah, what's going on? Is it a kidnapping? Ah. This is a big deal." Everyone's attention was attracted by this scream. They saw that on the street where Gu Fei came from, a person was also rushing over, fumbling for something while shouting. Who is it? Of course, the non-smiler was very vigilant. Hello, Mr. Kidnapper. I'm Multi Wood, an online reporter from Fun Gaming Network. Do you mind if I take up a few minutes of your time and ask you a few questions? The person who came was Multi Wood. He and Mudo were originally doing an interview with Gu Fei in the tavern, when suddenly Gu Fei said that he received news that he was going to kill someone. Qianli was going to kill someone when he was drunk. Of course, the two of them wanted to do a live report, but unfortunately, neither of them were as fast as Gu Fei. Of course, Gu Fei wouldn't delay something as important as killing someone for this. So although the three of them were coming this way, they were different. Gu Fei was the fastest, Multiwood was a little slower, and Mudo, that normal mage, was still nowhere to be seen. Multiwood, Mudo. Some of the people present immediately called out this name. Multiwood and Mudo had always been a joint author, and they used this name. People who liked Fun Gaming Network would not be unfamiliar with this name. Unsmiler was also one of the registered users of Fun Gaming Network, so he was familiar with this name. He had also seen Multiwood and Mudo before. A few days ago, these two had come to Moonlit Night City to interview Yun Zanmu and the others of the 10 Guild Alliance. As a passerby, Unsmiler had also been watching. After that, when Baisher was waiting for Silvermoon, these two had also appeared for an interview. They had waited for a day and a night for Silvermoon to come online, but unfortunately, they didn't manage to do so. Now that he saw this person, Unsmiler recognized that it was indeed Multiwood. However, how could Unsmiler be in the mood to answer any questions? Not to mention that he didn't think that kidnapping was very honorable. In the end, before he could even speak, Multiwood's professionalism had already shown itself, and the questions were already fired out like a cannon. Mr. Kidnapper, is it convenient for you to tell me your name? Mr. Kidnapper, why did you kidnap this mage girl? This is just a game. Mr. Kidnapper, why do you have the confidence to kidnap her? And it seems like you've done it quite well. If it's convenient, please answer me. Multiwood said with incomparable sincerity. Unsmiler froze for a full half a minute before coming back to his senses. He immediately furrowed his brows and roared angrily, "It's not convenient for me. Hurry up, all of you stand over there. If you don't do as I say, I'll fight it out with you." The girls hurriedly moved in the direction Unsmiler was pointing. Seeing that Unsmiler wasn't in the mood for an interview, Multiwood turned to Gu Fei, "Qianli, you rushed here to kill this person? In that case, you must know this person's background." "Of course, this person is called Unsmiler. But I'm not here to find him. I heard that Silvermoon is here. Why don't I see her?" Gu Fei and Multiwood had been around for almost the entire morning, so they were very familiar with answering questions. Silvermoon escaped to the exchange hall. Unsmiler quickly betrayed Silvermoon. If Gu Fei could immediately abandon him to chase after Silvermoon, that would be great. "Oh, then are you going?" Gu Fei asked. Cut the crap. All of you, turn your backs to me. Unsmiler was flustered and exasperated. Everyone did as they were told, but Multiwood was still asking questions of Gu Fei. Unsmiler. Is it that Unsmiler that you killed many times in a row? Yes, it's him. Oh, that was a long time ago, right? Looking at the current Unsmiler, what do you think? He's still asking for it. Then what do you think about him kidnapping? He's worse than a beast. Then do you know why he kidnapped her? I suggest that you ask guild leader July over there. July. The leader of Cloud City's all-female guild, July. Ah, I've heard a lot about you. I've been looking for a chance to interview you. Of course, July wasn't as famous as Gu Fei, but Multiwood was a well-informed person in the world of gossip. He wasn't an ordinary person, and his eyes were on the entire game, not just one main city. Reborn Amethyst, who was in the limelight during the guild war and had an all-female guild, had naturally taken note of her. As for whether or not I've been looking for a chance to interview you, was just a polite compliment, Multiwood wasn't sure. However, it was clear that Duo Mu did not know much about the Amethyst rebirth and July's situation. Gu Fei's face was already dark as he said, "Who told you that this girl is July?" "That Grandmaster of Combat over there is." When Gu Fei mentioned July, he glanced in that direction, and Multiwood immediately mistook the Luo beside Gu Fei for July. "Ah. I'm so sorry, I've made a mistake. So you're guild leader July." Multiwood didn't feel awkward at all, and smoothly walked towards July. As expected of a reporter, his ability to hit a snake with a stick was impeccable. "Since you're reborn Amethyst's July, then I've more or less figured out the problem with Non-Smiler, hee. Multiwood laughed. He was a serious gossiper, so how could he not know about the past between July and Non-Smiler? July wasn't in the mood to bicker with him. She frowned, not knowing what to say. Non-Smiler could only pretend that this person did not exist. After seeing that everyone had turned their backs to him as he said, he suddenly pushed glazed ice out and activated his stealth skill. Someone heard the commotion and couldn't help but turn around, only to see ice glaze fall to the ground, and Non-Smiler disappear. He immediately shouted, "Non-Smiler's gone." Everyone turned around. Gu Fei shot out 2 meters like an arrow, then teleported to Ice Glaze's side. Dual Flame Flash, Descending Flame Will, 1,000 Layers of Flaming Tree, these spells bombarded a large area, but there was still no sign of Non-Smiler. At this moment, Gu Fei couldn't sense Non-Smiler's presence either. Clearly, Non-Smiler wasn't paying attention to him. Non-Smiler had always been paying attention to his movements, but at this moment, he wasn't paying attention to him. Could it be that he knew how he was able to see through stealth? Only martial artists with a certain level of foundation would be able to know about this situation. Currently, Gu Fei had only met 100 Lives of Essence and Breaking Water Arrow who had this ability. Although Gu Xian was extremely skilled in the game, he did not have this kind of intuition. Did Breaking Arrow tell him? Gu Fei thought as he pulled Ice Glaze up. On the other side, July was commanding the girls to scatter white lime everywhere, hoping to wash Non-Smiler out. But it seemed like the chances were slim. They didn't know which direction Non-Smiler had chosen to go, but now it seemed like he wasn't here anymore. "You guys go ahead, I'll go take a look at the exchange," Gu Fei said. "See that silver moon?" July asked. "Yeah." Gu Fei turned around as he walked, "Remember to let me know if there's any news of Non-Smiler." "You don't have to trouble yourself, right?" July said. "Don't, chopping people is my hobby, please," Gu Fei hurriedly said. "Okay," July said. "Thank you." Gu Fei left happily, leaving July at a loss. Who should thank who for this? Over at the exchange, Silvermoon had successfully made it inside, but she was already surrounded by layers of people, and there was no way she could escape. These people were all on Lan Yi's side, and most of them were Silvermoon's former brothers. At this time, they were loudly criticizing Silvermoon's lack of loyalty. Silvermoon's face was pale, but this was the safe zone, not the offline zone. Going offline would be the most dangerous thing to do, so Silvermoon could only grit her teeth and endure. Gu Fei walked into the crowd and was immediately seen. Everyone was gratified. Brother Qianli is here too. He's here, he's here. Where's the vast expanse? Where's Yuzai? Gu Fei asked. He's here, he's here. Someone answered from behind. Gu Fei turned around and saw Tsubasa Sakaratsuka eagerly following the vast expanse. Brother Zue, you came even faster than me. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka said. How did you find Silvermoon? Gu Fei hurried over after receiving Tsubasa Sakaratsuka's message. I saw it on the forum. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka replied. Forum? Gu Fei was at a loss. Yeah. I don't know who it was, but it said on the forum that Silvermoon would go there. Those who have a grudge can take revenge, and those who don't have a grudge can take revenge. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka said. Yeah. We also saw this post, so we called everyone over. Someone on Lan Yi's side also said. Gu Fei felt that there was something fishy about this. He suddenly thought of why July and the others would come to Baishur City for no reason. He immediately sent her a message to ask. Kitty saw someone post on the forum saying that non-smilers would appear here in Baishur City. When she came back, she told everyone in the guild, and everyone clamored to come. July said helplessly. It seemed that she wasn't too enthusiastic about this matter. She really couldn't resist the enthusiasm of the girls in the guild. In fact, the girls were usually very united, especially when it came to helping each other. They could already be described as shielding their own, and helping those close to them rather than reason. Another post on the forum? What's going on? Just a random post on the forum and everyone believes it after reading it? Gu Fei was puzzled. Brother Zue, you don't know, but this isn't an ordinary post. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka said mysteriously, the ID that posted the post now has a nickname, Prophecy Emperor. He's made a few posts about things in the game, and none of them were wrong. So when he posted the location of these two guys, everyone believed it without a doubt. Chapter 6:14. Prophecy Emperor. Gu Fei repeated blankly. Brother Drunk, have you never heard of this name? Tsubasa Sakaratsuka asked. No. Gu Fei shook his head blankly. It was a pity that Brother Yu wasn't here. Otherwise, if he asked Brother Yu about the forum, he would definitely have the most detailed information. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka was just about to introduce him, when someone else beat him to it. This Prophecy Emperor's ID is one leaf that tells the autumn. He was one of the moderators of the Parallel World Forum's gossip section. His predictions were never made in the form of a post, but rather in the form of a reply. He would even participate in some of the more controversial issues in the game. Because he was a moderator, of course everyone would pay attention to his replies. As a result, people quickly realized that apart from spamming, everything else that this ID said would eventually be proven to be true. As for the title of Prophecy Emperor, it originated from a player who made a post calling himself Prophecy Emperor. He made some predictions about the development of the game. Later on, this one leaf that tells the autumn replied to his predictions. I don't need to tell you the final result, right? In any case, the title of Prophecy Emperor was attached to this one leaf that tells the autumn. Because of his identity as a moderator, everyone guessed that he was someone from within the game company. We once wanted to interview this Prophecy Emperor, but he declined. However, a few days ago, one leaf that tells the autumn leaf was no longer a moderator of the gossip section. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka originally wanted to talk about this in detail, but he didn't think that this person would beat him to it. He saw that this person was next to Gu Fei, but he didn't know him, so he casually asked, You are? I am Duomu, an online reporter for fun games. Duomu introduced himself. Duomu. Another person blurted out. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka swept away the gloominess of having his spotlight stolen. He tidied up his equipment and walked in front of Duomu, so it's reporter Duomu. Sorry for the disrespect. I am the guild leader of Cloud City's Eternal Life Guild, Tsubasa Sakuratsuka. Our guild's motto is... Before Tsubasa Sakuratsuka could finish, Gu Fei covered his mouth and pushed him to the side. He could imagine that this guy's guild motto was pretty bad. He didn't expect that Duomu was indeed a veteran gossip. He even knew about eternal life in the flowery clump. He nodded and smiled. Is it the eternal life in the flowery clump that, a hand reaches out from the flowery clump, the girl who has touched it will follow me? When Tsubasa Sakuratsuka heard that the other had actually heard of them, he was immediately overjoyed. He struggled to push Gu Fei's hand away and shouted, right, we also have a motto which is... Alright, don't say any more. Boundless Mang also came to stop Tsubasa Sakuratsuka. Her words were even more effective than Gu Fei's martial arts. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka immediately shut his mouth. He didn't even ask why. He calmly smiled at Duomu and said, we'll talk about it later. That lowly appearance made Gu Fei and Boundless Mang feel extremely embarrassed. Lan Yi's group of brothers didn't get along with Tsubasa Sakuratsuka to begin with. Right now, they were all happy to watch a joke. However, Duomu didn't seem to mind at all. He actually smiled and nodded his head. Since Duomu had been in this profession, he had seen all sorts of players. As long as there was a topic, he would be interested. He didn't care if it was vulgar or noble. Moreover, people nowadays were more interested in vulgarity. Duomu had once interviewed a kind-hearted player who didn't hesitate to pick up equipment. After reporting in depth, he thought that he would receive a lot of praise, but in the end, he was called an idiot. Even Duo, who had reported the story, was called an idiot. This caused Duomu to sigh at the degeneration of morals in the world. From then on, he only cared about whether the topic was attractive or not, regardless of whether it was good or bad. Eternal life flowers. And, if he took this out and made a report, it would definitely cause a lot of people to agree. As Duomu thought about this, his expression became a bit vulgar. Eternal life flowers. Cough. Gu Fei coughed heavily. Everyone returned to reality. Duomu quivered and said, oh, where were we? Prophecy Emperor. Gu Fei said. That's about all there is to know about Prophecy Emperor. Since he was the one who released the news about Silvermoon and Non-Smiler, then how did he know about their movements? Actually, we might as well interview Silvermoon. Duomu said. Everyone was a bit stunned. Then, they saw Duomu squeeze through the crowd and arrive in front of the pitiful Silvermoon in the exchange hall. Hello Silvermoon, I'm Duomu, an online reporter from Fun Gaming Network. Do you mind if I take up a few minutes of your time and ask you a few questions? Duomu was truly a professional. He repeated this sentence over and over again. It didn't vary from person to person, and he spoke with incomparable sincerity each time. Silvermoon hadn't played much of the game recently. He spent a lot of time on the forums, so he was even more familiar with Duomu. But right now, he obviously wasn't in the mood to answer any questions. He was constantly thinking about what to do, so he ignored Duomu. Duomu didn't seem to be surprised by this sort of attitude. If the other person didn't reply, then he took it as a tacit agreement. Especially since they were in the safe zone, he didn't have to worry about the other person being unhappy and killing him. As a result, he picked up a pen and paper and asked, according to an insider, the news that you and Non-Smiler appeared here was provided by the famous Prophecy Emperor One Autumn Leaf. Do you know about this? Silvermoon originally planned on ignoring Duomu, but after hearing this, he couldn't help but be startled. He couldn't help but say, Prophecy Emperor One Autumn Leaf? That's right. It seems like you know this ID. Then do you know his true identity? How did he manage to predict your actions today? One autumn leaf being able to predict the development of the game is acceptable, but being able to predict the movements of two specific players is too miraculous. Can you explain this to me? Duo Mu began to bombard him with questions. The only ones who knew that he and Non-Smiler were here were Hongchen Yixiao and Breaking Water Arrow. And after the two arrived, they were very careful to hide themselves so that no passers-by could see through them. Taking a step back, even if he was recognized, Non-Smiler definitely wouldn't be able to. After all, he was in stealth. Even if he had anti-stealth equipment, he would only know that there was a thief here. Without interrupting stealth, he wouldn't know who the thief was. It's Hongchen Yixiao. This person is the Prophecy Emperor One Autumn Leaf. Silvermoon shouted. Hongchen Yixiao. Duo Mu quickly wrote it down in his notebook, while handing it over to Silvermoon. Is this how it's written? He's a player. What class is he? What level? Male or female? Are you familiar with him? How did he know you were coming here? Silvermoon expressionlessly stared at Duo Mu. You motherfucker. As expected of a famous online journalist who had seen great storms and waves, Duo Mu turned a deaf ear to this foul language and continued to speak in a serious tone. I hope you can answer a few of my questions just now. Silvermoon was about to curse again, when Gu Fei squeezed into the crowd and asked, Hongchen Yixiao. Silvermoon stared blankly at Gu Fei. Then he reacted and immediately said, That's right, it's that guy. He's been plotting against you this entire time. Hurry up and kill him. How could Silvermoon still protect Yi Xiaowu? As soon as he saw Gu Fei, he immediately told the truth. For him, Gu Fei and Yi Xiaowu were both enemies. Letting them fight each other was the happiest thing for Silvermoon. But when Gu Fei heard this, he looked at him with disdain. You don't need to tell me, I already know. Silvermoon was stunned. When Duo Mu heard that Gu Fei knew about this person, he immediately ignored Silvermoon and went back to Gu Fei. Do you know this Hongchen Yixiao? Who is he? What level? Male or female? It's a male. Gu Fei said with certainty. Then he started scratching his head. Class, level. I really didn't pay attention. It's a cleric. He's level 37 now. This person knows a lot about the game. He's probably someone from the company. No wonder he's a prophet. No wonder, no wonder. Silvermoon shouted. He had suddenly found a way to get revenge. He couldn't be sure if Hongchen Yixiao was someone from the company, but this Duo Mu in front of him had a resource that the experts in the game didn't have, public opinion. If he really reported this, then Hongchen Yixiao would definitely attract attention and the company would have to investigate. If they didn't find anything, then Duo Mu's report was wrong. If they found out, then Hongchen Yixiao would definitely be in big trouble. When he thought of this, Silvermoon was extremely excited. He even started to wonder why Qianli didn't have this kind of information on him when he was drunk. Someone from the company? Really? Duo Mu's spirit rose a bit. This was big news. It's true. Gu Fei nodded. Fuck. This kid is quite sinister. He's even better at acting than me. Silvermoon realized that Gu Fei was thinking the same thing as him and couldn't help but feel a bit of sympathy for each other. Oh. How can you be so sure? Duo Mu asked. He told me. Gu Fei said. Him. Who? Duo Mu said. Hongchen Yixiao. Gu Fei said. Everyone was speechless. Silvermoon was even more flustered and exasperated. He felt that Gu Fei's lies were a bit too ridiculous. Why would he tell you all this? Duo Mu also felt that there was a bit of a problem. If Hongchen Yixiao really was someone from the company, then he should have done his best to hide his identity. He was in a bit of trouble at the time. I helped him out and he said that the company had received a report about some problems, so he entered the game to take a look. Gu Fei said. Ah. An online GM? Duo Mu's face was filled with disappointment. If it was just an online GM coming online to deal with some problems, then it was a very normal thing. I'm not sure about that, Gu Fei said. No, it definitely can't be an online GM. Silvermoon immediately became lively again. Recently I've been spending a lot of time with this person. He's like a normal player, online for a few hours every day. Doing quests, leveling, buying and selling, is this what a GM should do? Oh. You've been spending time with this person recently? Duo Mu heard this news and moved closer to Silvermoon. That's right. Silvermoon clenched her teeth and decided to spill the beans. Today, Non-Smiler and I appeared here because of his orders. He wanted to deal with Qianli drunk, so he told us to come and set up an ambush. But who would have thought that this heartless thing would betray us? Then may I ask if there's any conflict between you and him? Duo Mu asked. Conflict? What conflict? Silvermoon said. Then why would he do this to you too? Duo Mu asked. How would I know? Silvermoon said angrily. Weird, really weird. Duo Mu shook his head and muttered as he organized the things he had just interviewed. At this time, someone in the crowd suddenly yelled, Duo Mu, where are you? Duo Mu. Here, here. Duo Mu replied. A girl squeezed through the crowd in front of him. It was Duo Mu. This girl was a normal mage, and her legs were slow. Everyone had been busy for a long time before she finally arrived. I told you not to choose a mage. How could you make it in time to collect first-hand materials? Duo Mu grumbled. Don't I have you? Duo Mu smiled. Is this Miss Mu Duo? Hello, I'm Flower Cluster. Oh, brother drunk. Someone from the Flower Cluster wanted to join in on the fun, but was pushed back by Gu Fei. What's going on? Duo Mu asked. Take a look for yourself. Duo Mu handed the information he had just obtained to Mu Duo. Mu Duo looked at the information and analyzed the relationship. It seems like the Prophecy Emperor told Silvermoon and Non-Smiler that he wanted to deal with Qianli drunk, so he sent them here to ambush him. But in the end, they were betrayed by the Prophecy Emperor, and Qianli drunk showed up here to kill them. Mu Duo paused and looked at Gu Fei. You're in cahoots with the Prophecy Emperor. Silvermoon was startled and immediately yelled, Damn, so that's how it is. You bitch, you actually thought of such a vicious method to deal with me. Gu Fei snorted. Don't even think about it. I don't need to use tricks to deal with you. If you dare to go PK with me. Ugh. Gu Fei checked Silvermoon's level. It was 37. He then continued, 27 PK matches. Silvermoon was depressed. Gu Fei was obviously implying that he would drop to level 10 after 27 PK matches. He wouldn't be able to PK anymore even if he wanted to. Mu Duo shook his head. If you guys aren't in cahoots, then I really can't think of a reason why he would do this. If only we could contact him and interview him. Duo Mu sighed. I'll help you ask. Gu Fei took the initiative to send a message to Yi Xiaowu, but the result was like a stone thrown into the ocean. Silvermoon's brain wasn't enough. He couldn't figure out the relationship between Qianli drunk and Hongchen Yixiao. TCH, he ignored me. Gu Fei was regretful. Then Qianli, can you tell me why this Hongchen Yixiao wants to deal with you? Duo Mu asked Gu Fei. He and Gu Fei were quite familiar with each other now, so they were more casual in their conversation. He thinks that I'm destroying the balance of the game and wants to make peace with me. Gu Fei smiled bitterly. Destroying the balance? Duo Mu was confused. It's the question you asked me before about fairness. Gu Fei said. Oh. It seems like this person thinks that you're an unfair existence. Duo Mu smiled. Looks like it. Gu Fei nodded. Then are you sure he's someone from the game company? Duo Mu asked. As long as he's not lying. Gu Fei said. Yes. Duo Mu nodded. That was enough. Even if he couldn't be completely sure, he could write it as someone who claimed to be an insider of the game company. Now that they were done gathering information, Duomu turned his attention to Silvermoon. He was also someone they had been trying to interview for a long time. Duomu cleared his throat and walked up with Mu Duo. "Brother Silvermoon, can we talk about how it feels to be a guild leader who used to be so glorious, but now you've fallen to the point where you're hated by everyone? Get the hell out of here." Silvermoon was furious. Duomu didn't move, but Mu Duo quickly wrote in his notebook. Gu Fei was puzzled, so he asked Silvermoon what she had to write. Gu Fei went over to take a look. Mu Duo's pen flew like the wind. Gu Fei followed her strokes and read, when the reporter found Silvermoon in Whitestone City, surrounded by players, and asked him how he felt today, Silvermoon flew into a rage out of humiliation and let out an unimaginable roar at the reporter. We could see that he was under a lot of pressure. Ha 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 ha. The surrounding players all burst into laughter. First draft, Mu Duo said modestly. Then, Brother Silvermoon, what do you plan to do next? Duomu asked. Silvermoon's face was ashen. He didn't say anything and turned his head to the side. Gu Fei tilted his head and saw what Mu Duo had written in his notebook. When faced with a question about the future, Silvermoon's face was filled with confusion. He squatted to the side like a silent lamb. This time, Gu Fei didn't read it out loud, but the other players knew that he must have written something. They all came over to take a look. Mudo read it out loud, and the other players cheered loudly. Mudo was so excited that his face turned red from the praise. Gu Fei glanced at Silvermoon. This guy's mental fortitude was quite good. He was able to endure being ridiculed like this. What do you guys plan to do? Gu Fei turned around to ask the people surrounding them. What else is there to say? We'll sow the seeds here and reap the harvest at the revival point. We've already contacted the people. It's already getting lively over there, the others said. Boss Qianli, please do what you need to do. There's no need for you to do it, someone else shouted. Is that so? Then I'll have to trouble everyone. Gu Fei cupped his hands at everyone and prepared to leave. Silvermoon had already heard all of this. His face was ashen. He looked up and saw Boundless Mang standing in the crowd looking at him. A glimmer of hope lit up in Silvermoon's heart. He opened his mouth to say something, but Boundless Mang had already squeezed out of the crowd and didn't look back. Silvermoon, hurry up and get something done. Don't waste time here. You can still go offline and rest at the revival point, right? The crowd laughed. Silvermoon gritted his teeth. This was the exchange hall. There was another way, which was to buy a teleportation scroll and leave. But the problem was that the exchange hall wasn't an auction house. He couldn't use in-game gold, so he had to use online banking. Of course, Silvermoon didn't lack money, but the problem was that the bank card number was a necessity. He didn't remember it, so he had to take the risk of going offline to look at the bank card number. But if he didn't do that, he would be sent to the revival point and then be hunted. Silvermoon had already gone through that kind of life once. He didn't want to relive that painful memory again. Finally, Silvermoon made up his mind and forcefully disconnected from the game. Chapter 6:15. The players exclaimed. Gu Fei and the others hadn't gone far when they heard the commotion and immediately turned back. Duo Mu and Mudo were the most enthusiastic. They were already holding pen and paper and shouting, "What's going on? What's going on? Silvermoon's gone." Someone shouted. Teleport? Gu Fei frowned. No, he's logged off. Someone shouted. They all had Silvermoon as a friend, but some had deleted them. Others kept them as mementos in case they needed to take revenge in the future. Forcefully logged off. Duo Mu and Mudo were excited. Since the game had repeatedly emphasized the dangers of forcefully logging off, the players were very careful. Apart from those who were born to be lazy and experimenting when they were at a low level, players who had reached a certain level would never forcefully log off unless there was an accident like a power outage. Two reporters bravely squeezed to the front and asked the players in front, "Where did Silvermoon log off?" "There," someone pointed out. The two of them quickly jumped up and carefully observed the area where Silvermoon had gone offline. Muto's pen flew again. Level 37 Silvermoon. Forced to go offline, he chose to go offline. According to the reporter's observations, the negative effects of forcefully logging off were not shown when he logged off. As for the details of the damage, we hope that the person involved can return to the game as soon as possible so that we can do a follow-up report. The other players were also discussing. He even forcefully logged off. Has he decided not to play anymore? Don't fall for it. That guy has always been cunning. Maybe he purposely used this trick to trick us into leaving. That's not a good trick either. Who says we have to leave just because he forcefully logged off? Look! He's back. Following a player's shout, a ball of white light appeared where Silvermoon had disappeared. Silvermoon appeared in front of everyone in one piece. Everyone used Identify on him, hoping that he would be refreshed to level 3.7 when he logged off. The result was disappointing. After everyone appraised him, they realized that Silvermoon's level and equipment had not changed. About 5 minutes after Silvermoon went offline, he hurriedly memorized his online bank account number and returned to the game. The first thing he did when he entered the game was to immediately check his belongings. With just one glance, he was petrified on the spot. Level, skills, coins. None of these were what Silvermoon valued the most. There was only one thing he valued the most, the King's Sword. The first thing he checked when he came online was the King's Sword that he had placed in his pocket. No. There was clearly nothing in the grid that he had placed. Silvermoon did not give up. She checked all the compartments in her pockets again, wishing that she could pour everything out. However, she still could not find any trace of the King's Sword. Silvermoon's face was ashen as she sat down on the ground. This loss was absolutely devastating to him. Right now, Silvermoon's reputation was in tatters. Wherever he went, he would be ridiculed. However, he knew very well how powerful the King's Sword was. He believed that as long as this sword was still in his hands, there would always be a team that would accept him for this sword. Perhaps he was just using him, but Silvermoon always believed that with his own skills, as long as he had the chance to come into contact with people safely, he would be able to do whatever he wanted. Who would have thought that, when he forcefully logged off, he would lose the King's Sword? Silvermoon would rather use all of his equipment, all of his levels, all of his skills, and all of his EXP in exchange for the King's Sword. Unfortunately, no one would give him this opportunity. Silvermoon's abnormal actions caused the other players to be unable to react. After a moment of silence, someone finally opened his mouth and shouted, "Little guy, what are you pretending for? Hurry up and come out to die." Silvermoon raised his head, but he did not look at anyone. He stared at the crystal pendant hanging from the ceiling of the exchange hall. His face was filled with utter despair. The King's Sword was his only source of spiritual sustenance and confidence. Without it, Silvermoon finally lost the motivation to persevere. The surrounding people were still cursing. Silvermoon had heard this kind of cursing many times, but this time, he might never hear it again. With a flash of white light, Silvermoon disappeared once again. The players were stunned. Someone opened up his friends list and said, "Fuck," forcefully logged off again. What the hell is this guy doing? Gu Fei had been quietly watching from the side. He did not blindly try to argue. He saw the series of changes in Silvermoon's expression after he logged back in. From surprise, to fear, to anxiety, and finally to despair. In particular, when Silvermoon had one hand in his pocket, he seemed to be at a loss as to what to do. Gu Fei was almost certain that Silvermoon had forcefully logged off this time and lost something extremely important. For Silvermoon to be so disheartened to this extent, Gu Fei could already guess what Silvermoon had lost. This time, perhaps he would not see this person again. Silvermoon's lifeless eyes when he logged off lingered in Gu Fei's mind for a long time. Unfortunately, he only had himself to blame for all of this. It was his actions that led him to this ending step by step. Nothing in this world was without a reason. It wasn't that he didn't have a chance. If he could face these people calmly, perhaps he would welcome a different sky. But he valued himself too much, valued the king's sword in his hand, and valued the feeling of being a king. In the end, he lost that feeling, then the sword, and finally himself. When he realized that he could no longer get any fun out of the game, he could only helplessly choose to quit. This was the only thing that Gu Fei sympathized with and felt sorry for. In fact, he didn't need to quit. He just needed to step back. Perhaps it would be many steps back, but at least the game would still be there, and there would still be fun. Gu Fei sighed. He looked back and saw the vast expanse. She was standing behind him and could also see the angle at which Silvermoon disappeared. She saw everything that Gu Fei saw and thought of everything that Gu Fei thought. In the end, she could only leave behind the same sigh. Silvermoon, that bastard, is she still coming? Gu Fei heard people in the crowd still cursing. Gu Fei didn't stop them. This was one of their fun in the game. But when they found out that Silvermoon wasn't coming back, who knew how they would feel? Gu Fei left, and so did the vast expanse. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka didn't have much interest in Silvermoon, so when he saw the vast expanse leave, he immediately chased after him. Duo Mu had already added Gu Fei as a friend. At this time, he expressed that he wanted to stay a bit longer to interview the players who were chasing Silvermoon, so he promised to visit Gu Fei again when he had the chance. As they walked, Gu Fei suddenly thought of something. He turned his head and asked the vast expanse, "Did you know that no one came to take the ideal staff?" "No one came to take it." "You're saying that no one from the auction house came to take it?" The vast expanse was shocked. "Jian Nan Yu and the others have been guarding there." "That seems to be the case," Gu Fei said. "Would someone buy equipment and then not want it?" "That's strange. Could it be that someone secretly took it without them noticing?" The vast expanse said. "That's possible, they're also suspecting that it's the case." Gu Fei said. "That's right, I've seen the forums. You guys set up a studio with Jian Nanyu?" The vast expanse asked. "Yeah. They've abandoned the dark side for the light." Gu Fei laughed. "How powerful is this efficient leveling method?" The vast expanse asked. Tsubasa Sakuratsuka and his brothers also looked at Gu Fei. This was actually 100 times more important than Silvermoon and Unsmiler appearing in the game. They had been preparing to ask Gu Fei for a long time. Gu Fei could only regretfully laugh. Priests and archers are a bit harder to use. After saying this, he suddenly thought of something. "Hey, you're a shadow priest, so maybe it'll be different. You need damage output to fight monsters yourself, right?" The vast expanse asked. "That's right, close combat. That's why an archer's bow can't be used. Other weapons are too weak due to their coefficient and passive skills, so it's hard to use them," Gu Fei said. "Then isn't it a tragedy for us? We won't be able to level as fast as other classes in the future." The lurkers looked at each other. Although they didn't seem to be an archer anymore after their class change, their nature didn't change. Their main damage output was still archers, unless they had some passive proficiency skill when they reached a high level. For now, they were still archers. If we add more power to our weapons, we'll be more efficient," Gu Fei said. "It's over. It looks like we can only pick up girls in the game from now on," the group of people said in agony. "It'd be great if we could really pick up a girl, but I haven't even held her hand after playing for so long," someone said gloomily. "You want to hold hands with those pig trotters of yours? Dream on." What followed was disdain. Gu Fei couldn't help but laugh. Suddenly, he heard the vast expanse say softly, if Silvermoon had their mentality, maybe they wouldn't be in such a state now. Gu Fei was startled, but he realized that it was true. Eternal life amidst flowers and the others may be wretched, but their attitude towards the game was surprisingly good. It was inevitable that they would howl in frustration at the thought of losing levels and equipment, but they wouldn't take it to heart. They would turn around and go back to looking for girls. In fact, they weren't looking for girls, but for fun. Just as he was thinking, Tsubasa Sakaratsuka slipped to Gu Fei's side and tugged at his sleeve. Gu Fei understood tacitly and slowed down 2 steps, walking beside him. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka whispered, "Brother Drunk, is there a way to double the efficiency of fighting monsters with a man and a woman?" "Get lost, there isn't." Gu Fei was furious. "You should think about developing a 2-person project. It'll definitely be very popular," Tsubasa Sakaratsuka said. Gu Fei was about to scold him, but after thinking about it, he felt that Tsubasa Sakaratsuka's words made sense. There were many couples in the game, and they probably wouldn't be willing to split up and guard a leveling area for the sake of leveling. If there was an efficient mode where 2 people could fight a monster together, it would definitely be welcomed by these kinds of people. As for those who were still single, they had to learn it too. Leveling with girls was a very effective way to pursue someone. If they didn't have an efficient 2-person leveling method, how would they get a girl? A 2-person leveling method seemed to have its own value. That's a good suggestion. Gu Fei nodded. Yeah. That's what I said. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka rubbed his hands in excitement. Then Brother Drunk, hurry up and develop it. I'll be the first to sign up and learn it. We're so familiar with each other, why bother signing up? I'll teach you guys for free. Gu Fei said. No, no, no. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka hurriedly said, just one is enough for me. Pervert, too pervert. Gu Fei really couldn't take it anymore. Hee hee. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka laughed drily and changed the topic. What's Brother Drunk doing next? Next. Gu Fei was stunned. He looked at the time and looked at his friends list. There were still many students online. He was furious and sent a group message. Why are you still playing? Yes, yes, yes. The students replied one after another while grumbling. Their attitude was completely different from when they received equipment and learned skills from Gu Fei. In this day and age, children were also very practical. Gu Fei urged the students and asked July, did you find the non-smiler? No. July said regretfully. That's a pity. Gu Fei was also regretful. The non-smiler was much luckier than Silvermoon today. Hongchen Yixiao, do you know this person? Gu Fei suddenly asked. He still couldn't figure out why Hongchen Yixiao would set up Silvermoon and the non-smiler. If the non-smiler really had a grudge with July, then the only one Gu Fei wanted to see if it was because he knew July and wanted to help her vent her anger. I don't know him. The answer he got was the same. Then what about that prophet emperor on the forum? Gu Fei asked again. I don't know him either, but we came here because we saw his post. Who is he? How did he know about the non-smiler? And Silvermoon, why are they together? Chiyue asked. I'm thinking too. Gu Fei said. Right, there's one more thing I came here for, July said. What is it? Gu Fei asked. Let us see your efficient leveling method. July said. Oh, I'll be free in a bit. Gu Fei said. Okay. Just as he replied to July, Mang Mang suddenly said, right, Lan Yi and the others want to find you to sign up for your efficient leveling method. Ah. Gu Fei was startled. Why was it about this again? Before he could reply, another message popped up. Gu Fei opened it and saw Yun Zhongmu. Brother Qianli, setting up a studio is such a big thing. Why didn't you tell us in advance? No, it was just a sudden idea. Gu Fei hurriedly said. Our 10-guild alliance has 4,000 brothers and we're preparing to sign up for you. Yun Jongmu said. Ah. Gu Fei was startled again. Another message popped up. It wasn't Yun Jongmu again. It was Sword Without Oath from Cloud City. I say, Brother Qianli, your studio is doing teaching. Why did you go to Baishir City? When are you coming back to Cloud City? Cloud City. We're going to do some research. We have some brothers coming to Baishir City. We're going to learn from you first. Ever since Sword Without Oath completed the guild mission with Gu Fei, they became friends. They didn't treat Gu Fei as an outsider and spoke directly. Really? How many people? Around 300. Ah, Brother Qianli, are you not coming back from this mission? When are you coming back to Cloud City? Huh? Gu Fei was confused. Didn't they just say it? After a closer look, the message wasn't from Sword Without Oath. It was from Go Against the Current. Then, Deep Waters of Shady Forest City, why are you online? What's the name of your efficient leveling method? When will it start? I've sent some brothers over to investigate. Strange Pupil and Yen Xiaozhu of Xia Fog City, efficient leveling method? What do you mean? Drifting of Unknown Whereabouts, studio. You're having a good time. The Coward Savior, Master. What's the efficient leveling method? Did you create it yourself? I want to learn it. Vast Mang continued to ask, say something. How do we sign up? July's message, where shall we wait for you? Yun Jongmu's message, Brother Qianli, when will it start? Our troops are coming, ha ha ha. Sword Without Oath, isn't 300 too few? Why don't we send 500? We'll support Brother Qianli's business. That's good. Go Against the Current, Brother Qianli, what are you busy with? Is it inconvenient for you to talk? Lu Ku, Deepwater's wife, hey, why aren't you talking to us? Strange Pupil and Yen Xiaozhu, tell us. If it's interesting, we'll bring our friends to learn. Drifting's message, what's wrong? Have you really become enemies? You're not even replying to my message. The Coward Savior, Master. How do I get to Whitestone City? Tell me. Brother Zue. Brother Zue. The members of the Eternal Life Guild shouted in a flurry. Quick, Brother Zue is going to faint. Gu Fei, who was bombarded with messages, felt a strong sense of dizziness. He looked at the time. Wasn't it so? This was the time when the night shift masters came online. Sword Demon and Yutian Shinming also came online one after another. This was the best proof. I'm going crazy. Gu Fei roared in the mercenary channel. What's going on? Everyone panicked. For Gu Fei to lose his composure like this, could it be that his PK value had exceeded 1,000 and caused the lords of the major cities to personally hunt him down? Everyone I know is asking me about the efficient leveling method, Gu Fei said. The channel was silent. What's going on? Where are they? Gu Fei shouted. In the end, it was Sword Demon who weakly shouted, fuck, us too, these guys were also in the studio. When they came online, they also received a flurry of messages. They had a lot more friends than Gu Fei. When it rang, they were even more devastated than Gu Fei. They didn't care about Gu Fei anymore. What was even more depressing was that some people kept asking for information, such as Sword Without Oath, Yun Zhongmu, and Lu Ku. They knew everyone in Young Master's elite group, not just any one of them. When Gu Fei didn't respond for half a minute, he immediately asked Sword Ghost, but Sword Ghost didn't have time to reply, so he immediately asked another person, causing them to be flustered. The same question was answered with all sorts of different answers, causing the other party to be even more confused and ask even more questions. TSK. In the channel, Han Family Young Master lightly said 2 words. Everyone could already feel the disdain coming from him. Your name wasn't hit? Everyone asked in shock. How could that be? I'm your leader, Han family young master said. Then how did you reply? Everyone saw that Han family young master didn't seem to be very busy. Stupid, I turned off the message and set it to an automatic reply. Han family young master said. Everyone thought that this method was indeed brilliant. However, when they saw all these strange questions, they couldn't think of a single sentence to reject them. What did you set? Yutian Shinming asked. Ask Brother Yu, Han family young master said. Why ask Brother Yu? Brother Yu isn't here. Yutian Shinming was furious. Brother Yu worked hard last night and rested late, so he still isn't here. Idiot, I set it to ask Brother Yu, Han family young master said. Oh. Everyone came to a realization. How despicable, everyone said as they set their messages to ask Brother Yu. Chapter 6:16. The 5 members of Child Elite Group who were online all set up the automatic reply, ask Brother Yu. The 5 of them didn't know how the person who received the automatic reply would react, but their ears were quiet. The message was shut off, but the people around them were still around. Boundless Mang was still fighting for registration for Lan Yi and the others. This wasn't a big deal. Gu Fei was about to agree casually, but he suddenly thought of the message he had just received. He couldn't help but be startled. Dusk in the cloud is also coming. What will happen if they meet Lan Yi? Gu Fei didn't want to get entangled in this kind of personal grudge, so he simply told the situation to Boundless Mang. Boundless Mang was startled. They want to learn too. Then it seems like there's no need for us to learn anymore. Oh. Gu Fei was startled. This didn't seem like Boundless Mang's personality. Even if the 10 Guilds Alliance was tyrannical, this lady shouldn't be backing down. If the 10 Guilds Alliance learns, then the entire leveling area will probably be occupied by them. Even if the others also learn, it seems like they won't have a chance to kill monsters. Boundless Mang said. But Boundless Mang had just said this when she had a new idea. The 10 Guilds Alliance shouldn't be the only guild with this kind of plan, right? Gu Fei thought of Sword Without Oath, Against the Current, and Deepwater. These were only guild leaders that he could directly speak to. He couldn't help but nod his head. If that's the case, when everyone competes for the leveling area, I wonder what the scene will be like. Boundless Mang said. If you were the guild leader, what would you decide? Gu Fei asked. Looking at the idea of your studio, you're preparing to develop the leveling areas one by one, right? Currently, there are only 1 or 2 leveling areas that have been developed. They're too scarce, and it's not wise to directly enter the competition. If it were me, I'd contact you privately and pay a high price to hire you to teach in our designated leveling areas. However, it doesn't seem very appropriate. The leveling areas can't be sealed off. If we start to level up, other players will naturally see us. Even if you don't teach us anymore, other players can just steal our leveling areas. Aya, this is quite troublesome. Boundless Mang frowned as he thought about it. In this situation, learning it is one thing, but whether or not I will have a chance to use it in the future is another matter. Yes, you're right. Gu Fei nodded. He could foresee this situation, but he wasn't too worried. To put it bluntly, this was still a problem of kill stealing. This was a long-standing dispute in the game. Gu Fei believed that any other player had more experience than him in dealing with it. When the car comes to the mountain, there will always be a way. As for Lan Yi's side, I'd better advise them not to learn it for now. Boundless Mang finally said. Okay. Gu Fei didn't have any objections. Afterwards, he parted ways with Boundless Mang and the others. The students were no longer online, so Gu Fei didn't need to prepare any lessons for them. In the end, he also chose to log off and rest. The effects of the efficient leveling method were still hot. The distance between the main cities and Whitestone City varied. For example, Shady Forest City and Moonlit City, it would only take 2 to 3 hours for players to arrive. For those that were further away, it would basically take 2 to 3 hours to arrive. Hence, with 2 to 3 hours as a cycle, players constantly gathered from the outer cities to Whitestone City. At this time, the wilderness camp didn't look like a leveling area at all. At a glance, there were no monsters at all, only players. Under these circumstances, how could anyone continue to level? Everyone was no longer concerned about the monsters. They asked each other about the efficient leveling method. Some people even took advantage of the crowd and set up stalls to do business. The White Mill was the same. Although they hadn't started teaching, a large number of players lingered there to observe. Just like that, the two leveling areas were abruptly piled up like a gathering. It was very lively. Brother Yu was obviously very tired these past 2 days. Today, he slept exceptionally long. When he woke up, the sun was already setting. He quickly got up and crawled to the computer. He wasn't in a hurry to enter the game. First, he looked at his own post. Brother Yu's first post had long been toppled. The reposting of the post on the major forums also received extremely enthusiastic attention. Brother Yu was overjoyed. He didn't pay attention to the forum friends who sent him messages asking for details. He couldn't wait to enter the game to report the good news to his brothers. As a result, as soon as he went online, he hadn't even stood firm when the news came roaring like a landslide. Although Brother Yu was mentally prepared for this situation, he was still somewhat at a loss. He had already been online for 5 minutes, and the message notifications were still constantly ringing. These people had been stifled by the 5 Ask Brother Yu automatic replies for the whole day. At this time, when they saw Brother Yu in person, they were like hungry tigers pouncing on their prey. They wouldn't let go no matter what. After 10 seconds of not receiving a reply, they sent another message. Brother Yu replied in a flustered manner while reporting to the others in the mercenary channel, "Oh, the situation is great. The crowd is very enthusiastic." "Yes, too enthusiastic," the 4 of them said. "What's the situation? How many people have signed up?" Brother Yu asked. "The registration seems to be on Qianli's side, right?" Han family young master said faintly. "Oh, that's right. Why isn't Qianli here?" Brother Yu was itching to quickly count the numbers. Speak of the devil. Gu Fei had also finished his dinner and went online with a bang. Brother Yu immediately sent a message, "They're here." "How many people have signed up?" "Ask Brother Yu." "Why are you asking me? How would I know?" Brother Yu was puzzled. "Ask Brother Yu." Brother Yu immediately understood what was going on. He also immediately understood why he was bombarded with messages. He was depressed. But what could he say? He could only lament that he was destined to be a servant. He helplessly sent a message in the mercenary channel, "Qianli, turn off the automatic replies." Gu Fei was also dumbfounded at this moment. Since Brother Yu's post was released in the morning, Gu Fei had been receiving emails. At that time, he didn't pay much attention to it. Ever since he became a popular character in the game, he would receive a lot of emails every day. In the beginning, he would reply to them seriously. However, Gu Fei's patience was limited, especially when everyone's emails were similar. In the end, Gu Fei started to ignore them. He would only take them out every day when he passed by the city gate. But when he went online, the system notified him that there were 21,231 emails in his mailbox. So when he saw Brother Yu asking him to turn off the automatic replies, he didn't care about the awkwardness and immediately announced the message, "This is crazy. There are 21,231 emails. No, there are 21233. In the time it took to say this, 2 emails came. That's so cool. Yutian Shinming was the first to cheer. Wu Shang, come and get the emails with me. Bring a few gunny sacks. Gu Fei called out unscathed in battle. This was obviously a hard job. It was a fully simulated game. Everything had weight. Which mailbox? Unscathed in battle was rarely so diligent. Go to the nearest one. Gu Fei took care of Unscathed in Battle's short legs. Okay, see you at the North Gate. Unscathed in Battle said. Okay. Gu Fei replied as he turned off the automatic replies. At the same time, he looked at the messages during the automatic replies period. Among them, the most impressive one was hundreds of realms of statecraft. How's the situation? Ask Brother Yu. Brother Yu isn't online. Ask Brother Yu. How can I ask if he's not online? Ask Brother Yu. Is he invisible? Ask Brother Yu. I asked, but he didn't reply. He's not online, right? Ask Brother Yu. How can I ask if he's not online? Ask Brother Yu. Damn, it's an automatic reply, right? Ask Brother Yu. Brother Yu isn't online. What's the point of setting this automatic reply? Ask Brother Yu. Even under the automatic reply, hundreds of realms of statecraft still exchanged 8 sentences with Gu Fei. The perseverance of a martial artist was evident. Looking at the time, it was a short while before Gu Fei went offline. That time, hundreds of realms of statecraft might have just come online. Now, he was nowhere to be seen. Other than that, the people from Unsworn Swords stopped talking after being asked, "Ask Brother Yu," 2 or 3 times. Some of them even left a disdainful comment. Gu Fei walked towards the mailbox at the North Gate. On the way, the number of emails was still increasing. In the channel, Yutian Xinming was intensely calculating how much 21233 was multiplied by 99. The number directly broke 7 digits, making the others feel suffocated. At this time, Jiannan Yoshi and the others had also come online. Being serious and responsible, they had mastered the efficient leveling method that Gu Fei had taught them last night. At this time, they were just waiting to show off their skills. They were also aware of everything that had happened that day. Jiannan Yoshi was also asked a lot of questions. He did not unkindly ask Brother Yu. He only replied that he did not know and asked them to directly follow the posts on the forum. At this time, seeing that Gu Fei was online, Jiannan Yoshi also came to ask for information. Gu Fei quickly grabbed more than 20,000 letters. Although Unscathed in Battle had great strength, he did not have such a big sack. Jiannan Yoshi was naturally not careless when it came to work. He directly led 6 of his brothers to meet up with Gu Fei and Unscathed in Battle. The 9 of them took out over 20,000 letters in one go. On the way out, the number of letters in the mailbox was accumulating again. This is too fast. I thought it would take 3 or 4 days. It seems that we can gather the required number in one day. At this time, Sword Demon and the others gathered in an empty room in Whitestone City. There were many people in the tavern, so it was very inconvenient to do things. With the income from yesterday's camp in the wilderness, Han family young master bought a property in Whitestone City as the office of their studio. Most studios would hang their signboards out in the open, afraid that others would not recognize them. However, they did not dare to do so. With the current momentum of their studio, if they really hung up their signboards, the entire street would probably be blocked. Gu Fei and the others carried the sack back to the office. A large pile of letters fell to the ground. He wiped his sweat. In just a short while, there are over 1,000 letters. It was easy for the masters to adapt to the big scene. They nodded casually, and Han family young master began to assign tasks to everyone. Qianli, you take a few people to open the letters and take the money. Brother Yu, you take people to organize the time and calculate the data. Han family young master did not directly appoint people. Jiannan Yoshi was smart enough to point out 3 of his 7 people to count the money with Gu Fei. On the child elite group side, Yutian Xinming and Unscathed in Battle also actively jumped out. They were also willing to be intimate with Dollar. More than 20,000 letters, not all with Dollar attached. Apart from a few hundred personal letters that Gu Fei had not dealt with recently, the remaining half were actually just inquiries. However, Gu Fei and the others were in the absolute seller's market. In addition, the person in charge was someone like Han family young master. Of course, they would not have a good attitude. Those letters that did not pay for the money were directly thrown away. Some of the letters were from guild leaders. They wanted to buy together, so they wrote to discuss the price in private. There were also letters from Boundless Mang, who had previously thought of directly booking the whole place. These letters were temporarily left behind. In addition, a large number of money bags were piling up in the corner of the room. In the game, the players did not need to prepare the money bags. As the number of gold coins in the bag increased, the color of the bag would automatically change to show the level of the bag. Currently, the highest level was the red 1,000 gold bag, with a limit of 10,000 gold. The main job of Gu Fei and Yutian Shinming was to put the small bags of gold coins together as much as possible. These letters with the money bags would be handed to Brother Yu and the others. Naturally, the letters would be according to Brother Yu's request on the forum. The players would attach their own class, weapon, and attribute information. This time, Gu Fei and 100 Lives Strategist's development was quite comprehensive. The classification was no longer as simple as long or short. Instead, it was divided by class, such as warrior, mage, thief, and so on. Different classes had different playstyles. After a room of tireless work, more than 20,000 letters were finally sifted through. In the end, there were a total of 10,231 letters with gold coins attached. However, the amount of gold coins that were sorted out was 10,12457 gold coins. Compared to the theoretical number, it was actually a few hundred gold coins less. Since this income did not need to be entered into the accounts, there was no need to pay taxes, and there was no need to report to anyone. The difference of a few hundred gold coins was ignored. It took him more than 8 hours to finish all the work. Halfway through, the 100 Eras strategist also rushed over to help. The Han family's young master finally stopped being shameless, and stopped standing at the side and pointing fingers. At this time, Gu Fei reported that they had received another 21,457 letters in their mailbox in the past 8 hours. Everyone felt like dying. From the beginning, Sword Demon and the others expressed that they did not want to spend too much time on this. They would rather recruit external help and take a portion of the money. However, based on the current situation, even with the addition of Jian Nanyu and the others, the manpower was still a problem. After dealing with the other 20,000 letters, it was almost noon the next day. When everyone went to sleep and woke up, there would probably be another 20,000 letters. Then, they would deal with it again. During the teaching phase, Sword Demon and the others might not need to interfere. However, according to the rhythm of Han family young master's arrangements, it was time for the next leveling area to be announced. That meant another round of receiving letters, counting money, and sorting. Although Jian Nanyu and the others could foresee this future and felt that it would be tough, they did not have the same resistance as Sword Demon and the others. After all, their starting points were different. For the 7 of them, earning this money was their final goal. For Sword Demon and the others, this money was only a bridge to their goal. They could not tolerate sacrificing all their energy on this goal. Are we going to get the letters? Jian Nanyu asked Gu Fei as he wiped his sweat. Gu Fei was also somewhat unwilling. Although the angle was different, the concept was similar to that of Sword Demon and the others. However, he also felt that this matter would take up too much time. Therefore, everyone in the room looked at each other. No one answered Jian Nanyu's question. What's wrong? Jian Nanyu asked. He did not understand the mentality of these people at the moment. If we do this, we won't even have time to level up. Sword Demon represented everyone and said what they were thinking. Jian Nanyu was stunned. He immediately understood what these people were thinking. To put it bluntly, everyone's philosophy was completely different. However, they were forced to work together. Now, there was already a disagreement. Jian Nanyu and the others definitely hoped that the business would be as big as possible. However, Sword Demon and the others seemed to be leaving after getting enough money. It's already past 3. If we get another 20,000 letters, it'll be time to sleep. We haven't done anything today. Unscathed in Battle frowned. Counting money was fun, but he did not come to the game to count money endlessly. Jian Nanyu was a little depressed. When he first joined, he did not expect these people to have this kind of mentality. At that moment, it seemed like these people wanted to be hands-off shopkeepers. They did not care about the work and only cared about the money. If it was Gu Fei and 100 years of experience who did this, Jian Nanyu would definitely have nothing to say. After all, the two of them were the ones who developed the efficient leveling method. They had already made the most important contribution. However, these people wanted to be hands-off shopkeepers too. Why? Just because they were friends with Qianli after getting drunk? Jian Nanyu smiled bitterly. If that was really the case, there was really nothing he could do. He had already realized the current relationship between everyone. Even though the Han family young master was the leader of this team, the real bosses could only be Qianli after getting drunk and 100 years of experience. Why? Because the production materials belonged to the two of them. The efficient leveling method was completely in the hands of the two of them. Therefore, as long as the two of them did not object, Jian Nanyu could only stare at them if they really wanted to hands-off shopkeepers and split the money. After being deeply aware of his exploited position, Jian Nanyu did not say anything. He only hated that he did not have such good luck and did not become friends with Qianli after getting drunk earlier. How many people does the White Mill intend to recruit? Gu Fei asked. If we use the efficient leveling method, that place can accommodate about 3,000 people to level at the same time. Brother, you said. Oh. 15,000 people. That's about right now. Gu Fei remembered that the Han family young master had said that it would be fine to recruit 5 times the number of people. However, Brother Yu shook his head. 3,000 people refers to the saturation number of people at the same time. It is a number calculated according to the space. However, the saturation number we need now should also include the time. If we use a cycle of 1 day, I think the White Mill can satisfy the leveling needs of 10,000 people. However, considering the enthusiasm after mastering the efficient leveling method, this number should be lowered. I think it should be 6,000 to 8,000 people. That's 30,000 to 50,000 people. Gu Fei looked at the Han family young master. The Han family young master asked a question in reply. What about the teaching grounds at the White Mill? The conditions there are better than in the wilderness camp. Because of the existence of the White Mill, we can conduct our teaching on the roof. If the players can see it clearly, I estimate that it won't be a problem to train 1,000 people at a time. If we have 10 people each occupying a mill and start teaching, each batch will have at least 10,000 people. In theory, we can complete the teaching in 3 to 5 batches. The dedicated Jian Nanyu had already considered this problem. Chapter 6:17. So, who went to see the situation at the White Mill today? The young master of the Han family asked. Me. The one who spoke was still Jiannan. Due to the announcement of recruitment online, the White Mill has now become a popular leveling area. A large number of players from outside the city don't want to make a trip for nothing, so they stay there to observe our teaching. To be honest, this has caused a lot of inconvenience for us to organize the teaching. How to protect the interests of the players who have paid the tuition fees is a difficult problem. Sword Demon and the others couldn't help but feel ashamed. Jiannan's professionalism was really speechless. At this time, he had been packing the letters like them for 8 hours, but he didn't have a single word of complaint. Even if they were professional players who treated this as a job, they were definitely good employees. Thinking of their ambiguous thoughts of fishing every few days, the three of them looked at each other in dismay and were somewhat speechless. Sword Demon had always been a straightforward person. At this time, he really didn't want to be entangled like this, so he said, I want to say a few words. What? Everyone looked at him. This matter seems to be unexpectedly time-consuming. Personally, I don't want to spend a lot of time in the game on earning money, so I think, after finishing this task, I will quit, said Sword Demon. Everyone was stunned. The huge benefits of this transaction had been tested, and Sword Demon was actually willing to give up the huge benefits. After Unscathed in Battle and Yutian Shinming looked at each other, they suddenly nodded and said, we also want to do this. These two guys were usually greedy and lecherous, but when it came to this kind of general choice, they were very clear about what they wanted. At this time, they clearly made the choice to follow Sword Demon. This time, it was Jiannan's turn to feel a little ashamed. He thought that these guys would shamelessly rely on their relationship with Gu Fei to enjoy the fruits of others' labor. In fact, these high-level players had self-respect and were independent enough. They wouldn't do things like relying on others. But now that the studio has your name, without you guys. Brother Yu was a little worried. In online games, there were also fans. What if the players were fans of Sword Demon or Yutian Shinming and asked for autographs or guidance? We just don't want to do this too time-consuming business. We are still members of the studio. If you need help, just call us. Sword Demon said. Yes, yes. Yutian Shinming echoed. But you used our names. Shouldn't you give us a share of the portrait rights? Zhan Wushang said. Makes sense, makes sense. Yutian Shinming finally said. As expected, they are quite shameless. Jiannan finally believed that he was right. Everyone treated Unscathed in Battle's suggestion as a joke. As for their decision, Brother Yu was the only one who was confused. Fiery Clothes was the one who was dissatisfied. We agreed to work together. It's only been a few days, and we're about to quit. You guys. Fiery Clothes wanted to say that these people were untrustworthy and fickle, but Jiannan tugged at him. Fiery Clothes immediately shut his mouth. Sword Demon had already thought of this, so he was quite embarrassed when he said he wanted to quit. Now that Fiery Clothes pointed it out, he was even more embarrassed. Unscathed in Battle and Yutian Shinming weren't as shy as Sword Demon. They immediately retorted, didn't we not expect to spend so much time? We quit now because we don't want to be a burden to everyone. I understand your intentions. Jiannan nodded. We don't have any opinion on your decision. You can make the decision yourselves. Jiannan clearly didn't want to get involved in the matter. Fiery Clothes didn't say anything after hearing what he said. He stepped aside quietly. Unscathed in Battle and Yutian Shinming didn't go overboard. They looked at each other without saying a word. In the end, everyone looked at Gu Fei. They wanted him to make a decision. Gu Fei lived up to everyone's expectations and said, I think you guys should just be temporary workers. Temporary workers? The others were stunned. For example, if we accept this deal, we can work together. If you don't want to participate in the next deal, don't bother. Come back when you need it. Hey, that's a great idea. Unscathed in Battle and Yutian Shinming immediately applauded. Sword Demon was still hesitant. How could he not understand what Gu Fei meant? To put it bluntly, Gu Fei, Jiannan, and the others were supporting the business. Sword Demon and the others were the bosses. When they were free, they would help them and give them pocket money. When they were not free, they would just ignore them. Sword Demon felt that he didn't have the right to act like a big shot with his role in the business. He was a little conflicted. Alright, it's settled then. Gu Fei had already made his decision. He looked at Jiannan and the others. Jiannan, who had already recognized that he was being exploited, had already expressed that he had no opinion on any decision. Moreover, this decision was not bad. At least it was distributed according to work. Hence, he expressed his strong support. Everyone agrees. Gu Fei nodded in relief. He then added, I'll also be a temporary worker in the future. Fuck. Everyone looked at him with disdain. They thought he was helping Sword Demon and the others solve their problems. Now, it seemed like he was paving the way for himself. In that case, let's hurry up and close this business. Since the decision was made, everyone didn't hesitate anymore. Sword Demon and the others requested to hurry up and collect the mail. Hence, everyone moved out and rushed to the mailbox. There's no limit to the mailbox now? Gu Fei asked Brother Yu on the way. He remembered that his mailbox used to be filled with 1,000 mail. Now, it was 22,000 to 20,000. There are more and more players now, and there are more and more people moving between cities. In order to make it easier for everyone to contact each other, the upper limit has been removed. However, the mail will be automatically deleted periodically. Remember not to leave it for too long. Otherwise, even if you smuggle in some exquisite equipment, it will still be deleted, Brother Yu reminded. Jiannan Yu also suggested, there are too many players gathering at the White Mill now. This situation might happen again in the future. I suggest we don't recruit so many players this time. Let's recruit 20,000 people first and see what will happen. Then, we'll know what will happen in the future. The people from Child Elite Group looked at Han Family Young Master. With his habit, he would definitely look down on Jiannan Yu's suggestion and then come up with a better plan to make the person he looked down on speechless. As expected, Han Family Young Master glanced at Jiannan Yu and said, I already know what will happen. The recruitment plan will not change. The target is 40,000 people. The current progress is that there will be 20,000 mail in 8 hours. Only half of the 20,000 letters will actually be paid. That means we will recruit 10,000 people every 8 hours. Including the mail that has already arrived, we will need another 16 hours. Gu Fei said. We still need 8 hours to sort out the last batch of letters after 16 hours. Comrades, we still have 24 hours before we can rest. Brother Yu further perfected it. You calculated wrong. Han Family Young Master said indifferently. In 24 hours, there will still be 40,000 mails to be answered. Han Family Young Master said. Everyone spat out blood. Yutian Shinming grabbed Gu Fei's hand with tears streaming down his face. Is it still possible to withdraw now? Gu Fei's face was also deathly pale. He looked at the ashen-faced people and said, actually, we're not in a hurry, are we? Let's get rid of these 20,000 letters first. Everyone sighed and opened their mailboxes listlessly. They took out the letters and put them into sacks, attracting the attention of passers-by. Everyone knew that time was precious, so they hurried back to the office and began to work mechanically. Perhaps it was because of the 8 hours of training, everyone's professional skills had improved. This time, it only took 6 hours to sort out more than 20,000 emails. Once again, they counted 11,428 students and 1113057 gold coins. There was another error, but no one paid attention to it. It's 10. Brother Yu announced with a tired voice. Even people like Sword Demon who were used to pulling all-nighters couldn't take it anymore. Although they usually played the game for a long time, they rarely did they spend all their time doing the same thing. Moreover, it was such a boring thing. There are 11,102 mails in my mailbox. That seems to be a bit small. Gu Fei said. It's not strange. It's already the middle of the night and there are fewer people online. Brother Yu said. Everyone go offline and rest for a bit. We'll continue working when we're online. Brother Yu, go and announce the end of the recruitment before you go online. Han Family Young Master said. I'll rest. At that time, there might not even be 40,000. Brother Yu said. Don't be so sure. Even if I can't calculate it, it won't be too far off. Let's do that. Han Family Young Master said. Brother Yu nodded and didn't have any objections. Everyone move as one. See you in 10 hours. Any questions? Han family young master asked. Everyone nodded and left the office together. They hurriedly went to the offline area and went offline as if they had just gotten off work. 10 hours later, everyone went online according to the agreement. Brother Yu had already modified all the posts he had posted and announced the end of the recruitment. After going online, everyone gathered at the mailbox. The first thing they did was to ask Gu Fei to lock the mailbox and temporarily not accept any mail. 37,654 mails. Gu Fei announced the final result. I said it would be about the same, didn't I? Han family young master said to Brother Yu. According to the proportion of 50%, there would be about 18,000 people here. Adding the 20,000 people from the previous 2 times, there would be more than 40,000. Nearly 40,000 mails were completely moved by everyone. Some people started to sort them out and some people were sent out to purchase the materials needed to reply. Thinking about the 40,000 replies, everyone couldn't help but tremble. Everyone's professional level reached a new high. The 37654 mails were counted in 10 hours. In the end, the White Mill class successfully enrolled a total of 41,526 students. They should have received a total of 411074 gold coins, but they actually received 410894 gold coins, a difference of 2,120 gold coins. In the past, this would definitely be a number that would make people gnash their teeth in anger. But compared to this time, this difference didn't matter at all. As for how the difference came about, no one bothered about it. You can start replying now. Brother Yu's expression was solemn. Everyone's gaze turned to the large number of sacks that were packed and piled high in the room. Brother Yu got up and distributed paper and pens to everyone. Let me do the math. There are 41,526 letters. There are 14 of us, so that's an average of 2,966 letters per person. I suggest we have a competition. The first person to finish writing will get a prize of 100,000 gold coins. How about that? Brother Yu was rich now. Wasn't that right? In the other corner of the room, there were 400 red sacks piled up like a small mountain. Agreed. Southern Azure Sword and the other pro players rubbed their palms. Gu Fei raised his hand. Can we directly forfeit? No. Everyone angrily rebuked. Right now, every sack has the same amount of mail. I'll take out 34 from this. Okay, 3 sacks now have a total of 2,966 letters. Yu Tian, these are yours. Brother Yu distributed them one by one. The 14 of them each took 3 sacks and each took a corner of the room. For a moment, it was a bit crowded. Everyone prepare an empty sack and put the written letters inside. Think of a way to deal with the old letters. Everyone must be careful, and even more careful. If the final numbers don't match up, then rechecking will be a terrifying matter. Everyone, please imagine. Brother Yu said. Everyone closed their eyes and imagined. Cold sweat immediately appeared on their foreheads. They all expressed that they would seriously do this job well. Very good. Right now, everyone has received their 2,966 letters. A total of 41,524. The extra 2 are here. Brother Yu waved them around and then put them in his pocket. There's one more thing I want to say. I'm sure everyone has heard it clearly. Brother Yu looked at everyone. To prevent too many people from gathering and making it inconvenient to manage, we've decided to use a teaching method. With 10,000 people as a batch, they will start at 4 a.m. on the 3rd of March. 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Each hour will be a unit and they will be divided into 4 batches to complete this teaching. So, everyone's letters will be slightly different. Sword Demon, Yutian, Wushang, the 3 of you write, March 3rd, 4 a.m., White Stone City East Gate, 400 meters south. Don't wait after the deadline. Brother Yu said. Young Master, Qianli, Bai Shi, the three of you write, March 3rd, 5 a.m., Whitestone City East Gate, 400 meters south. Don't wait after the deadline. And so on. Blackwater, glue, fire Leany, the three of you write, March 3rd, 5 a.m., Whitestone City East Gate, 400 meters south. Don't wait after the deadline. Lastly, Big Nan, you and I, we have a total of 6 bags of letters. We will divide them into 4 periods. Each period will contain 1.5 bags. Then I will write 4 and 5. You will write 6 and 7. The number doesn't need to be precise. In any case, 1.5 bags will do. Jian Nan nodded. Do you all understand? Do you want me to repeat it? Brother Yu asked. Stop being so long-winded. Disdain filled the room. Then, let's begin. Under Brother Yu's command, the letter-writing competition officially began. Brother Yu also hurriedly started writing his 3 bags of letters in his own territory. No one spoke in the office. Only the rustling sound of pen strokes and paper flipping could be heard. Everyone chose to deal with their letters by throwing them on the floor. When Brother Yu saw the guy beside him casually throwing the letters, he felt his heart skip a beat. He could not help but remind everyone, be careful when you throw the letters. Don't throw them into the sacks that others have written or haven't written yet. Long-winded. Do we really have no sense of propriety? Disdain filled the room once again. Time passed by slowly. As everyone wrote, they paid attention to the time and the number of letters. Gradually, a horrified expression appeared on everyone's face. This was not a very complicated math problem. The first person to do the calculation was Jian Nanyu. He took about 20 seconds to write a letter, and he needed to write about 3,000 letters. Without considering any delays, he would need to write 3,000 letters in 20 seconds. He would need 60,000 seconds to write 3,000 letters. Jian Nanyu deduced 3,600 seconds and came up with the conclusion of 16. 6666666, it was impossible to deduct. The second person to do the calculation was Yutian Shinming. He took 30 seconds to write a letter. Using the same formula, he came up with a result of 25 seconds. His face turned pale. The third one, the fourth one. When everyone proved the minimum amount of time needed to write these letters from a scientific point of view, everyone was furious. They realized that they had once again underestimated the amount of work involved. Ever since they started this business, they had repeatedly made mistakes in misjudging the difficulty of the task. Fuck, it takes 33 hours to write this. Damn it. The first person to yell was unscathed in battle. Everyone was stunned. Based on the formula, they concluded that unscathed in battle took 40 seconds to write a letter. It was really slow. Everyone expressed their disdain and began to communicate with each other. They asked, how many seconds do you take to write a letter? It was not clear whether adding points to agility had any effect on the work, but personal writing habits were obviously the main reason. Warrior Jian Nan could keep up with Yutian Shinming for a full 10 seconds. Gu Fei, who specialized in agility and martial arts, did not have any advantage in this matter. Moreover, his writing state was extremely unstable. The time he took to write a letter was fluctuating around 25 seconds. The writing speed of the encyclopedic scholar was acceptable, but his attitude was too proper. He was afraid that the other party would not recognize him. He did not care about speed, but his handwriting was neat. He took 45 seconds to reply a letter, 5 seconds longer than the slow hand unscathed in battle. The other person was the negative side of the encyclopedic scholar, which represented the Han family young master. Not only was his handwriting sloppy, it was also extremely shameless. It did not follow the format at all. After continuous evolution and condensation, the final format was 3:5 a.m., 400 meters south from the East Gate. Quick! Everyone scolded him for being shameless, but they quickly imitated the Han family young master's format. Brother Yu's persuasion was ineffective, so he could only follow the trend and fall. Everyone's writing speed had greatly increased. Jian Nan, who only needed 20 seconds to write a letter, now needed 10 seconds to write a letter. The time he took was reduced by half, and there was hope that he could finish the work within 8 hours. He was very pleased and was determined to get the 100,000 gold coins. After several hours of intense competition, the third bag of letters was almost empty. Jian Nan, who was about to win, suddenly saw something flash in front of his eyes. He saw Brother Yu standing up with a smile on his face. There were 3 packed sacks piled up under his feet, and he made a V shape with his right hand. It's over. Jian Nan was shocked. 8 hours, 6 minutes, and 47 seconds. Brother Yu announced. As expected of Brother Yu. Everyone sighed. From this, it could be seen that practice makes perfect. Brother Yu did not write so many notes for nothing. Just a little bit more. Jian Nan was depressed. If he had discovered the Han family young master's shameless writing method earlier, he might not have lost. Don't worry, you still have a chance. Brother Yu smiled. However, everyone felt a chill in their hearts. That's right. This job would be repeated again and again in the future. Fuck, I don't want to live anymore. Unscathed in Battle cried loudly. After using the Korean format, this encyclopedic scholar had only shortened the time by about 10 seconds. There was still hope for him to break the 20 hours mark. Chapter 618. Under everyone's gaze, Brother Yu took away 10 bags of gold coins from the corner of the room. There were 100,000 gold coins in total. Everyone swallowed hard. Then, South Sword, Han family young master, Sword Demon, and Blackwater finished their work one after another. Even though they had initially wanted to finish the job as soon as possible, they didn't have the heart to do so when they saw how Zhang Wushang and the others were so slow. They all stepped in to help. After another 3 hours of hard work, they finished answering all the letters. As soon as they put down their pens, everyone fell to the ground with hideous expressions. They hated the work. Printing is truly a great invention, they heard Unscathed in Battle mumble to himself. Alright. Let's do this to the end. Everyone, get up and send all the letters, Brother Yu yelled. The frequent work had obviously accumulated experience. However, there were many ways to carry letters. For example, South Sword and Unscathed in Battle, who were strong, made their own shoulder poles. They tied a bag of letters to one end and carried another bag in the other. They could carry 3 bags at a time. Flaming Jacket and the others were troubled. 3 bags of letters meant that they had to walk back and forth several times. At this moment, Han family young master pushed open the door and waved his hand. Carry the letters. 10 gold coins for each. Those who are strong enough, come. Many people came instantly. Their eyes lit up, and they all ran to the door to pick people. Most of the players who were willing to work for 10 gold coins were newbies. They weren't afraid that they would run away with the letters, so they all paid 5 gold coins as a deposit. The newbies were overjoyed. They took the sacks and left. Gu Fei and the others followed them in high spirits, pointing at Unscathed in Battle and the others who were relying on themselves. Sending a letter was much easier. The recipient's ID was filled in according to the requirements of the system. Everyone had already completed this task when they wrote the letter. At this time, they just needed to grab a bunch of letters and throw them into the mailbox. Then, the mailbox would be closed, and the system would send it out without any delay. As for the sender's ID, according to the system's rules, the sender's ID would belong to whoever lost the letter. Thus, Gu Fei, the recipient of the letter, and Brother Yu, the publicist, would be in charge of the ID. The others would either pass the letter to them, or they would be in charge of closing the envelope, or they would be on guard to prevent the letter from being lost. Everyone performed their own duties and cooperated sincerely. It took them less than an hour to complete the task. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief and relaxed. However, brother, you had to say something that spoiled the mood. Don't throw away the sacks. Keep them. We still need them in 2 days. Because of this sentence, brother, you almost died on the street. Stop fighting, let's go back and split the money. Brother, you roared, diverting everyone's attention. The gold coins they earned were still piled up in their office. This was one of the main functions of a private house, as a warehouse. However, if one wanted to use it as a warehouse, they would have to calculate the volume themselves. It was not like the warehouse boxes provided by the system or the player's pockets. Splitting the money was still quite exciting, so everyone returned to the office. Apart from the 100,000 that brother you had taken, there were still 4 million gold coins left. Actually, there were still a few thousand left, but everyone was too arrogant. What was a few thousand? It was negligible. How were they going to split the money? This was something that they had wanted to discuss at first, but no one had any idea. Thus, they decided to discuss it after they got the money. Now, the time was ripe, and the decisive moment had finally arrived. On this sensitive issue, although there were 14 people on both sides, it was fine to just treat it as 2 people. The child elite group and 100 generations of classics counted as 1 person, while Jian Nanyo's group of 7 counted as 1 person. After that, how the 7 of them would split the money was a small matter. In Jian Nanyo's eyes, Gu Fei was the boss. At this moment, he looked at Gu Fei to see what he had to say. However, at this moment, Gu Fei was not paying attention. He was thinking about how he had already pulled all-nighters for 2 consecutive days. This could not go on. No one spoke for a moment. In the end, it was still the Han family young master who spoke. What? No idea. If no idea, then I'll say it. Go ahead, go ahead. Unscathed in battle, and the others hurriedly said. Who would dare to have any ideas in front of the Han family young master? Everyone has been working hard, but everyone has seen how generous the reward is. 4 million gold coins, no one here has ever seen such a large amount, right? With such a generous reward, I think everyone shouldn't mind who did more or less in the process. Also, don't mind how important the things you do are. Han family young master said. Everyone understood what he meant. For example, in this matter, brother you had put in a lot of effort in the publicity, while the names of Sword Demon and the others were golden signboards, attracting a lot of attention. The entire operation of the business was basically decided by the Han family young master. Jian Nanyu and the others had also done a lot of detailed work in private. If they had to measure all these things to a value, it would be quite troublesome. What the Han family young master meant was that since there was a lot of money, taking a small change was something they had never seen before, they shouldn't be so calculative. Of course, Qianli and Bai Shi are exceptions, the Han family young master added. Everyone nodded. That was for sure. As mentioned before, the production materials were provided by these 2 guys, and they were both evil capitalists. Excluding them, we have 12 people in total. If each of us gets 250,000, it will be exactly 3 million. The rest will be divided between the 2 of them. Does anyone have any objections? The Han family young master said. No. Everyone shook their heads. 3 million was gone, and there was still 1 million left. Gu Fei and Bai Shi Jingluan got 500,000 each, which was twice as much as them. Everyone thought it was completely acceptable. Therefore, the Han family young master looked at the other 2 and asked, what about you? No objections, Gu Fei said, and Bai Shi Jingluan also nodded in agreement. Give me the money. The Han family young master waved his hand, but there was no scene of a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. The money was already in their pockets, and it was not like they could get more if they pounced on it. Who would be in a hurry? Everyone walked over in an orderly manner, one by one, one helping the other, and the other helping the other. At this time, Brother Yu scratched his head and said, according to the final proportion, the 100,000 bonus I just got seems to be a bit too much, each person got 250,000. Brother Yu got 100,000 more than everyone else just because he wrote faster in a few minutes, which made him feel a little uneasy. Especially since he was the one who suggested it. Take it. The Han family young master said disapprovingly, the bonus system should exist to encourage everyone. But next time, don't do it in such a ridiculous place. What will it be next time? Everyone pricked up their ears and asked. The writing this time was Brother Yu's strong point. Everyone asked what the next event would be so that they could practice it in advance. The Han family young master glanced at everyone and asked, drink? Get lost. The group of people dodged. After each of them received 250,000 yuan, the remaining two capitalists went to take their remaining value. Gu Fei casually took a few bags and stepped on the rest of the money with his feet. He said to the 100 eras Jingluan, take all of it. How can I do that? You put in more effort than me. Bai Shi Jingluan was very sincere. I don't lack money. Gu Fei left. Bai Shi Jingluan's face was full of tears. He was trying to find a way to hurt his pride. Everyone was shocked when they saw Gu Fei give up with such a small amount. Yutian Xinming quickly came up and asked, can I take some too? Don't. That guy is counting on this. If it wasn't for this reason, Gu Fei wouldn't have minded giving it to everyone. We're counting on this too. 7 professional players raised their hands. He's in the same system as me, Gu Fei said. It was a blatant show of favoritism, but Gu Fei felt that it was reasonable. Even if Jian Nanyu and the others were forced to rely on games to earn money, they definitely wouldn't be as unwilling and helpless as martial artists. Who wouldn't want to be recognized for what they learned their whole life? Although it was too elementary to use money to measure it, the current problem was that it was impossible to use such elementary values to measure it among a wide range of people. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to understand this feeling. The 1 million was for Gu Fei and Bai Shi Jingluan. It was their business who got more or less. Yutian Xinming was shameless to ask, and Jian Nanyu and the others were just joking around with Gu Fei. They didn't really want to get a few bags. Therefore, no one had any objections in the end. Bai Shi Jingluan happily took 960,000 gold coins, and Gu Fei symbolically took 4 bags. Qianli's family is rich. Brother Yu was sharing knowledge with everyone. Bai Shi Jingluan had mentioned it the other day. Fuck. So there's a foundation of paying players. Everyone exclaimed. Fortunately, he's not like this. Everyone imagined how scary it would be if Gu Fei was armed to the teeth like Slim Waist Dance. But his current equipment isn't bad either. Someone muttered. Gu Fei had a few pieces of equipment on him. Apart from the Night Streamer and the Night Spirit Robe, which were 2 super powerful equipment, the rest were either gold or purple. They were obtained from killing bosses or quests. They might not even be sold in the market, but they were still quite luxurious. Let's go shopping. These experts had a lot of gold coins on them. They could be considered paying players. When Gu Fei's Night Streamer was auctioned, Slim Waist Dance's highest bid was only 20,000 gold coins. That was a sky-high price. However, these people all had 250,000 gold coins on them. If they really had a Night Streamer that cost 20,000 gold coins, they could buy 12 of them. They could use one every month and throw it away for a year. However, if they wanted to buy something like this with money, they would need opportunities. Didn't Slim Waist Dance covet the wind-chasing boots? Those boots weren't even at this level. These people shouted and went straight to the auction house. They were definitely nouveau riche. Jian Nanyu and the others in the room looked like they were earning money to make ends meet. They carefully kept the gold coins like they were treasures. At the moment, there was no official way to exchange gold coins for cash. The only way was to buy equipment and sell the equipment at the exchange hall. The cruel system would definitely deduct taxes from these channels. Therefore, Professionals like Jiannan Yu and the others wouldn't do this. They would directly sell their virtual currency on the exchange hall. If there's nothing else, then rest. We'll be busy tomorrow. The Han clan's young master was the last to leave. He left a message for Gu Fei, the encyclopedic scholar, and Jian Nan's group of 7. Everyone nodded. Number 1 went online to sort out the remaining letters and reply. It was already the morning of the 2nd. The reply was scheduled for the 3rd of the month, which was less than 24 hours from now. Time was of the essence. The 9 of them had no intention of spending the money, so they went offline in a hurry. After resting quietly for a whole day, Gu Fei didn't go online again. He only casually browsed the web in his spare time. Duo Mamuduo's interview was also sorted out and published on their Fun Gaming Network. These 2 guys were also famous reporters in the gaming circle. The reports they published were also republished by the gossips. Therefore, although Gu Fei didn't know what Fun Gaming Network was, he quickly saw Duo Mamuduo's interview with him. There were no flashy words or presumptuous conclusions. Although Duo Mamuduo was a little funny and unreliable during the interview, the final draft was still the truth. Gu Fei was especially satisfied with the information about Kung Fu that he got from Gu Fei's mouth. Duo Mamuduo didn't just cater to the reader's preferences. Instead, he catered to the interviewee's preferences. He gave a very high evaluation of Kung Fu, a cultural element that had already declined. It wasn't that the media hadn't sung such empty praises before. The Kung Fu circle would often hold some activities in an attempt to promote the influence of Kung Fu and change the current declining situation. But unfortunately, Kung Fu was too out of touch with modern life. Good Kung Fu, wonderful Kung Fu, anyone could write such praises. But when it came to the specific meaning of such good Kung Fu, everyone was stuck. To say that it challenged oneself and developed the limits of the human body was as empty as praises. To say that it punished evil and protected world peace, the relevant departments wouldn't agree. So it wasn't that no one contributed, it was just that this thing was really hard to deal with. But now, Duo Mamuduo's perspective was different. Good Kung Fu. How good? Just look at Qianli getting drunk and you'll know. Just look at the efficient leveling method and you'll know. You still don't know? Then let's listen to the voices of some other interviewees. Gu Fei didn't know where Duo Mamuduo found this group of interviewees, but it was very likely that they were Lan Yi's brothers outside the exchange that day. This group of people were enemies with Gu Fei during the Moonlit Night City battle back then. It was very likely that they had been slashed by Gu Fei. Even if they weren't slashed, it was possible that they had seen the people around them being slashed, so it could be considered as speaking from their own experience. This group of people had the most intuitive impression of Gu Fei's valiance. At the same time, now that they had changed their identities, they were happy to stand on the side of Gu Fei. Naturally, the voices they made were full of boasting. As a result, Duo Mamuduo's report had songs of praise, stories, witnesses, and examples. Among the players of the parallel world, Kung Fu was indeed very effectively publicized. Everyone knew the existence of Kung Fu, and they also knew that playing games with Kung Fu could be summed up in one word: strong. At the same time, Duo Mamuduo also revealed a piece of shocking information, which was the origin of the Dark Knight sword and the Dark Knight spirit robe. During the interview, Duo Mamuduo didn't expect Gu Fei to reveal everything so readily. Generally speaking, this kind of thing was like an expert who had mastered a set of peerless secret manuals. In order to ensure their strength, they would definitely guard against any leaks. This was the so-called making a fortune in silence. However, Gu Fei didn't have this taboo. The werewolf incident had left a deep impression on him, so he spoke of it very clearly. After Duo Mamuduo's report was released, Moonlit Night City's luminous village instantly became a tourist mecca. Coincidentally, so many players came to White Stone City to observe the efficiency leveling method. Moonlit Night City was nearby. Almost 2 or 3 hours after the report, the place was already overcrowded. Everyone seriously communicated with every NPC. An abandoned church, Adrian's mansion, a cave hidden in the forest, a cemetery without corpses. These were the famous scenic spots in Gu Fei's mission. They hadn't been erased just because the mission was over. When the players saw these ruins, they were all overwhelmed with emotions, hoping to find the enhanced Dark Knight sword. For a time, the popularity of this matter and the efficiency leveling method were not inferior to each other. The original interview with Qianli's drunken studio on the topic of the efficiency leveling method ended up becoming a history of Qianli's drunken endeavor. From the report, the readers saw a professional kung fu player enter the game, rely on his skills to open up a world, and now open up a land of money. The response from the masses was enthusiastic, and all the major forums were discussing Qianli's drunken studio and his kung fu. In addition, Duo Mumuduo also had a report, which was called the highlights of the interview process. People who were familiar with Do Mumuduo knew that they had a tradition of tidbits. The actual content was usually some other miscellaneous things encountered during the interview process. These things had not been dug into in depth and had not been confirmed. In short, they would be said first for everyone to judge for themselves. This time, Duo Mumuduo reported that Silvermoon was chased and surrounded and forced to go offline. Duo Mumuduo didn't add any of his own inferences, but simply described the relationships between the characters he heard. The highlights were filled with quotes from famous players such as Silvermoon, Qianli's drunken studio, and XXX. In short, the final content could be summed up. Even though Duo Mumuduo didn't come to a conclusion, anyone with a brain could see one obvious thing. The self-proclaimed game staff member Hongchen Xiao was the former gossip forum moderator, the suspected game staff member One Autumn Leaf, who was known as the Prophecy Emperor. The response to this highlights was also quite large. Players on the various forums were all guessing the authenticity of this information. Some people privately messaged One Autumn Leaf, while others ran to the game to try and contact Hongchen Xiao. In reality, no one knew how much authority game staff members had in the game, or whether they were omnipotent. They just assumed that these types of people would have more opportunities than normal players. For a time, there were also players who requested the game officials to give an explanation, to clarify whether or not there was such a balance breaker in the game. Balance? What was balance? It was a ruler in everyone's heart. Different people's hearts had different scales. Tolerant and magnanimous people would always have a larger scale of balance in their hearts. Acerbic and harsh people would always have a smaller scale of balance in their hearts. Or perhaps when people's values were different and their horizons were different, they would even have a completely different ruler. But in the player community, the majority of people couldn't even tolerate a game staff member playing an online game. This was also the reason why there was such an unwritten rule in the industry. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.